Well, the week-long wait is over. Welcome back to SwiftX Digital Motorsports, and we are here in the Kingdom of Bahrain at the Sakhara Circuit, 19 miles southwest of the Bahrain capital, Al Mama. It's 495 pylons and 5,000 spotlights that will illuminate this track, but nothing looking too bright this evening as these gladiators are going to get ready to go into Bahrain, the third smallest country in Asia, and the city-state of Singapore and the Maldives have smaller land masses, but this track is absolutely fantastic, as you can see. 3.6 miles, 6 left turns, 9 right, 3 DRS. Welcome along. I am the Dean Biggles, and joining me always in the booth is Mr. Ben. Good evening.
Yeah, hello. How are you doing, mate? How are we doing? So I'm certainly excited for today. Got some interesting moves around the grid, interesting things that we saw, of course, in the first race. Start up of maybe some stories heading through the season, some season contenders as well. How are you feeling heading into round 2?
It's to start to get a little bit more, okay, we've got everybody's come out, their nerves are there, you know, for the first race. Now it's time to start button down the hatches and start to really, you know, getting an idea of who is you going to be the target, the person to beat, how it's your pace going to be, how much practice have you put in to this first night circuit that we're going to have on our calendar.
Yeah, of course.
So yes, very interesting.
Yeah, looking at the track temperatures there, so it's still hot enough to get some traction. Of course, being the duel in the desert means that you are still going to see hot temperatures regardless of day or night. But I think I agree, is some of these drivers might not be fully used to night running and some of the different behaviors that might bring out in these cars.
4% chance of rain we're going to have, I believe, here at the Kingdom of Bahrain, which means the city between the two seas. It's unfortunate. I've never seen a Bahrain wet race yet, so maybe one day.
Yeah, I know you were gunning for it when we were talking about it last round. To say your fingers were
of course
tightly crossed. let the rains come.
You got to have one race in Bahrain, I think, in your career. Might not happen, obviously. It's not going to happen tonight, but we do have one of the drivers that will not be seeing the next part of qualifying, so this will be a nice practice session for the other remaining 15 drivers.
Yeah, certainly a little bit of acclimatization. I think just beyond, of course, the track position advantage, the longer you can have in qualifying, the better, because that's giving you some time to acclimatize to the track on the day.
This is a fantastic track too, obviously, for overtaking opportunities. Sometimes if you're bold and brave, obviously you go through turn 1, which turns into turn 2 and turn 3. And then you go all the way down that back straight. Then you got turn 4. Another possible overtaking opportunities, but really it's better to wait probably to get out of 10, which is the inner part of the sector 2. And then think about getting him at 11. But then sweep all the way back around and get a good exit out of 14, 15 and try it all over again at turn 1. So who would we like to go on board with? And we are currently on board, I believe, with the AlphaTauri.
He is a first runner, first one to potentially see what the pace is going to be like on track, at least for Q1. So it's setting the pace through the field. So Noah piloting that AlphaTauri quite nicely there. So getting some good lines. So really, I think a lot, especially in Sector 2, it's all about maximizing the width of the track, but not being too brave heading through the S-bend and into Sector 3.
Taking the esports line right there as well, too. Break it at the 50. That's when you go right off, as you mentioned there. Use as much of that track as possible. Really, the front right tyre should almost be clipping those braking board markers.
Yeah, it's all about the fine margins.
Way around 13. This is when you just go maximum up into 8th gear in a second there with the DRS open. Not actually, there's no DRS on that straight, of course, and then braking at the 50 here, sweeping for these couple of right-hand corners, and this is not really too much of it's more of an exit there, like a parabolica. The DRS open. First time here this evening for our practice session, for our qualifying session. Sorry, it was 28.6 on the dial. So get the bankers in. We mentioned that last week, didn't we? Get the bankers in.
Yeah, just play it safe. Initially, you have to play it safe. You don't have really a choice, especially Q1. You don't need to push that hard. These, you know, as we saw from Q2 and Q3 last time out in Australia, the times continue to fall, which indicated teams weren't giving it their all if they didn't have to.
28.6, 28.8, 28.29. Very interesting. Welcome everybody in the chat as well too in YouTube. We'll keep an eye on that as much as possible. Graphics look insane. Yes, they do actually. This is the first time I've seen this race at night. The new 2022 spec. Can even see a aircraft. Yeah, an aircraft. What is it? Or an aircraft's gone in the sky before. Can't remember what they call that. Jetstream?
Something like that. Sounds good.
Yeah, lots of those pylons, as I'd mentioned, to light it up. They got plenty of oil to burn, so don't worry about that.
Yeah, they're just cycling through the field a little bit. We're starting to see, at least initial pace, it looks like it's around the 128 range drivers are going to be looking for. Say Noah Ilakorpi with a 128.6 to start us off in the night here in Bahrain. Say E2 Apolainen with a 128.8, Bjorn de Boer with a 128.9. Both of the Hasses putting on some very strong initial pace. And then following on from that, we have Gustav Korsgaard with a 129.0, Joshua Basford with a 129.2, Peter Locke with a 129.4, and Jason McCleary in the 130s. I'd say Jason probably being one of those drivers who are in the danger zone, who is going to have to pick that up, especially once we see everyone else start to clock themselves in.
And Ben, an update from the stewards from last week's race. We do have a confirmation that AJ Jackson will be serving a 6th place grid penalty, and a 3rd place grid penalty for Bjorn will be occurring with those drivers. So regardless of their qualifying position, of course, add 6 to that. And AJ has been transferred through to a Williams, and Anton Larson has dropped out. So we've also got Gustav Korsgaard that's been contracted to Red Bull.
Okay. Yeah, that's certainly some interesting developments, I have to say. One thing that I didn't expect, at least personally, was some of the driver moves. So, like you say, Anton Larson, AJ taking the Williams spot. Goes to show that in this level of league racing, just because you have some mainstays doesn't mean there can't be some silly season from time to time. And as we've seen in the real counterpart, driver matchups and driver moves are probably one of the most exciting parts on the off season, but also on the on season.
Yeah, I think I was mentioning this as we were chatting about this last week, that they have to buy out Daniel Ricciardo's contract because he's contracted to 2023. Because they announced that only a couple of months ago, which I was actually very surprised that they were announcing that so soon in the season. And I bet McLaren were probably a little bit disappointed that they did do that, because if they didn't, they wouldn't have to pay his contract out if they don't want Daniel Ricciardo to drive for the season. Either that or another team has to buy his contract out. Either way, Dan Rick's going to get about 23 mil in his pocket.
I think beyond all else, it's a statement of intent as well, is that they wouldn't make those kind of moves if they weren't confident in some other kind of option. And that's the thing. As much of these moves can be considered risky per se, teams are smarter than that. They have strategists, they have sort of heads of futuring and development. All of these teams, they are still very considerate. What would be very risky moves to us on the outside, we don't have the full story. We might not fully know what is actually going on. So
you're right,
we have to consider
but I
that.
do have to go back. I would have to go back to that. The case, obviously, of Daniel Ricciardo's done it before, but remember, he completely caught Christian Horner off when he announced that he was leaving Red Bull, and going to Renault. So that completely caught them off guard. So it seems to me that Daniel Rick's kind of one of those drivers that does that, pull the plug on and surprise people, even his own team. So.
Yeah. So no amount of planning and strategy and team futuring can account for the fact that drivers have their own volition too. So if a driver wants to enact a clause in their contract or say, right, I'm off, it's been fun, unless there's some form of contractual obligation, teams can do very little about it.
That's why they try to lock up their drivers, obviously, pretty early, like Max Verstappen, and lock them in for a multiple year contract. Same with Charles Leclerc, Lando Norris, etc. It's just the big surprise one now, of course, is Hamilton is only a year-to-year contract, so he hasn't signed anything long-term with Mercedes. I'm sure they'd be happy to have him sign something long-term, but it's not the case, which means that it gives him the flexibility of what he wants to do in the sport next year, every year.
Yeah, and that's where you get into things sort of like special clauses and certain terms of a contract is that you can say, okay, they are contracted until X year, but under these certain conditions, they can extend, or they can cut the contract early, or there's a buyout clause. There's all these different little nuances of driver contracts that really sort of spice up the market in a lot of different ways.
We're aboard at the Ferrari right now. Abimar. And he's in 6th gear. See him. I will get that right. Having a look where he is on track at the moment. So he's just approaching the middle sector here. This is a turn 9. You want to sweep this one around. Drops it down to about 2nd gear here for the mini straight in the middle. This is where you're getting a lot of time. That DRS open. Generally, if you get close enough to back about at 0.2 of a second here, you could take an overtaken opportunity. Esports line once again. Sweeping it around 11. Big, long left-hander. Little short kink to the right here is your 12. Spot that apex there, get out on the power, and then a little bit of a downshift here to 13. And you get the best possible exit out of here because of that very long back straight. Sit there, go up at 8th gear, check your Twitter messages and social media, make sure it's all good. Enter your fans if you can before you hit that braking zone at 14 and 15. And that will be your lap on board the Ferrari. And he's down to about 25%, of course, just using all the battery as much as possible. Just goes to top the timesheets as well. But the battery, of course, you don't get to choose how much you use and when you use it in qualifying. It's just automatic.
Yeah, of course, they have their dedicated sort of hot lap setting going full burn, much discharge as you can over the course of a lap. So it's all about 1 lap pace.
Yeah, and there's only about 1 lap in that battery as well. So that's it. You've got to back off and charge it all up again. You can turn it off and then it'll just charge it. And then try it again. But the tires are another one. Because everybody is on the soft tires. Nobody's even elected to go out on those mediums, which I'm quite surprised.
Yeah, everyone, like I say, just trying to make the absolute most to say the pace they have on hand, maybe the track space. They're a little bit conscious of some of the space that they might have on tracks. We see here Jacob Scholten, one of the few drivers yet to set a time here on track. So lagging behind, getting a lot of invalidations, eventually calling it time going into the pit. Jasper Ten Haken in 7th place, coming in with a 129.037. It's very well done there from the Mercedes driver. So another one of the few. And then following that, we have also yet to set a time is AJ Jackson's coming through in the Williams. I'm going to hop on board with them now.
Yeah, Jason's also had a spin from P12 because he's on a flying lap, so I just have to abandon that. But exactly, AJ's has to set this, and AJ has to try to get as much up as possible, hopefully get his way into Q3 because he has a 6th place grid penalty.
Yeah, and of course, I'm sure that these drivers are going to have it in mind is that no matter what performance they put on, if they've got a grid place penalty, that's going to be lingering in their minds, and no amount of brilliant lap is going to change the fact that whatever hard work they put in, it's going to be brought down a couple pegs from previous incident. As you see, they're going very narrow, heading through the 2nd sector.
Wheel spin is a big one of issues this season. You really have to be kind to your tires. I've said it. You got to, buy your tires some flowers. Take them out to a nice dinner or for them, of course. Worry, one tire won't matter if you don't think you're cheating on the other tires. They all come. It's like you're dating quadruplets or something like that. Exactly. But anyway, you have to be very, very kind to your tires. Don't overheat them. And don't burn through them as well. See if AJ can get a good competitive time here. Only needs to get 15 and under. Goes up to P4.
128.754. That's a brilliant performance there from the Williams. And then last person we are waiting for to set a lap is Jacob Scholten in the McLaren right here. We're going to hop on board with them and see just how they do. Of course, they have 4 minutes on the clock so that they know it is do or die time by this stage.
He's getting it up already. He's not on a outlap just yet. He's on the outlap, sorry, my apologies. I was about to say, because he's not burning any battery. He's going to wait, obviously, to deploy that. Probably around turn 14 to 15. Maybe he might. Do you think he'll do it on the back straight before 14 to 15? Use a little bit of battery before you start?
I don't know. I think we'll see, say, this getting some heat into the tires first and then just coming out into the start-finish straight. giving it some absolute welly, giving it a proper gun down, get as much of an entry speed as they can. You can see right there.
Yeah, he's used about he's used about 10% already. I mean, because you want to get our maximum speed down the main straight.
Yeah, because a good speed trap head down the start-finish straight. It's worth about a couple tenths at least. So you got to optimize your speed heading through into there.
Yeah, I'm just looking at as well the top speed so far. 328 from Liam.
So we're looking at quickly at fastest sectors. Looks like we had AJ Jackson, so of course, unfortunately, little bug there. AJ Jackson taking the fastest sector 1, and then we have Amir taking sectors 2 and 3 in that Ferrari. Absolutely blistering pace on display there, showing the strengths of that chassis as a qualifying weapon. But we head on through here, so through the second sector. Oh, it's a big wiggle, and it's a spin from Jacob. But do they have enough time to recover? They've got 2 minutes 16 on the clock.
2 minutes.
I think they're going to go again because ultimately
he has to right now.
He's
He's got to turn his battery off, which is exactly what he's done. He might just be a little bit down on his battery, but he'll at least get an opportunity to get another lap. That's the main thing. That's the only thing he can really be concerned about. Yeah, he's got no time to come back in and get back out. So this is it. You got to just full gun blazing now, as he's the only one, of course, on the bubble.
Yeah.
So this is it. You're gonna have to pull off some of your. No stress. Just a 1 lap qualifying for this man right now.
I'm sure that he's not feeling any pressure. I'm sure.
He's got to go. So, yeah, he will definitely be down a little bit of battery, I'd say, by the end of that. But at this point, he can't do anything about it and just has to gun-ho. It'll only maybe cost him Sector 3 time. If he can nail perfect Sector 1 and Sector 2, he can at least afford to lose a bit of pace on that third sector. So let's see if Jacob could do it. Obviously, he is on a second run of these tyres, but it shouldn't be too bad.
Yeah, the degradation isn't quite as lethal, at least not until you get to the latter half of the lap. Usually, even in quali trim with full tilt, you still do get a couple of laps out of these softs before you start to notice the effects. But even so, I think we're seeing, again, a little bit of a difference in setup here, because the Turn 1 speed trap didn't look like they were all that fast, to say clocking in 201 or 202. I think we've seen a lot of other drivers going a lot faster down the start-finish, so that may be down to battery, potentially, but it also may lay bare how different drivers have attacked their setup problem.
His first sector is a good time. It's a 28.5. The fastest is at 28.54. Fastest was AJ, 28.51. So that's fine. That's looking good. It's going to be the so important second sector. Because actually now he's really run out of battery. So this is what I thought he was going to run out of battery practically before. Second sector tires, though, 38.5. That is definitely a little slower than most, and that's going to cost him about 2 tenths, 3 tenths here. But he only needs 1.3 seconds. I think he might have this. This is going to be all important. How much down on power is he going to be here? Oh, he gets up to P12. So, yes, lucky.
And there we go. What move that was. And just as the flag falls as well, it's going to be P12. And that is going to be Liam currently in the relegation zone.
What happened there with Liam? Exactly.
Let's see how we're doing here. So it's not going to be enough. So Jason is going to be stuck on P15. Albig heading into the pits.
That's the way you handle it, isn't it? Under pressure. Got it done. And down once again on the battery. So it started costing him a little bit of that battery time through Sector 2 and the Sector 3 as we naturally thought. And still managed to pull off that P13 time, which is 8 tenths, so that's where he lost it all, because he was evenly matched in the first sector. So that's all he needed to do, of course, was to go through.
Yeah, but it looks like Liam has consigned themselves to the fate. They're out of the session, which means that they're not going to get an opportunity to pull themselves out of the zone.
No, he didn't, yeah. I saw that. It was decided just to elect to stay in the pit. In the garage. And I think at the moment, Jacob's trying to bring the car back, which is practically out of fuel, I think. Maybe because he probably wasn't planning on having the car run 2 flying laps, remember? Yeah, it looks like he's out of fuel anyway, just trying to creep it home. But that doesn't matter. They will get the car back there, and we'll get ready to start the second part of qualifying. So This is obviously it's good to see AJ because he needs to cover off that 6th place grid penalty and didn't. He was one of the DNFs in the previous race and the 3 place grid penalty for Bjorn. So he needs to get himself up there as well.
Yeah, of course, you have to do a little bit of damage control when you're in a position like that. So heading through, however, it's a good starting time. It's a 1:28.245 in the Ferrari from Emir. Brilliant showing so far. 4/10 clear of the next closest competitor Zanua, a 1:28.6 in the AlphaTauri. Heading down to the bottom of the grid, we have Liam, who is bottom of the timesheets, 1.3 seconds behind, and is ultimately out of Q1, the only leaver of Q1.
Now, I think the stress will start to build up because, yeah, we're obviously going to eliminate 5 drivers. So I don't think yet they're going to have the breathing space that they had just before. They were only knowing that one was going to be eliminated. So you're going to expect to see probably a few more laps here. I'd say 2 to 3, maybe, you think, per driver. I might think and sit back on it and see how their times are going to be, whether they need to go out again and cover off. We'd say... Are we looking at about 6/10 will separate the top 10 here? So whoever has the provisional pole time, I think you're going to need about 6/10 yet to be feeling that you may be safe to go through the next part of qualifying.
You've got to get yourself into that top split one way or another. And as we look at, say, track temps, still roughly in a good operating window, but as we've seen, the track temp has dropped by a couple of degrees, and even at those finer margins, you got to think these tires, while they are designed to operate in a wider window, still, even so much as a single degree of track temperature can make all the difference.
Which is currently, as you can see, they're 25 degrees Celsius, 77 Fahrenheit for you still stuck in the prehistoric system. Haha. 31 Celsius and 88 Fahrenheit. I do it because there's only about 3 countries in the world I think can still use that. Anyway.
There we are, sticking on board with Ryan Yelty, as they are one of the first to get out on track, say, and currently one of the ones, say, we will be watching with great interest, at least. I say the Williams, of course, not particularly one of the teams that you'd otherwise expect to be topping sheets, but given some of the driver transfers that we have seen, particularly AJ putting on a good performance, at least in Q1, certainly a team that I've suddenly got a little bit more interest in.
You can see they've even got the updated little bar that goes across to the bottom of the rear side guard there to stop that porpoising effect. So they got that updated after all that. Of course, there's no porpoising in this year's game version. Not that I've seen.
At least they've done very well to get it under control to the point where we maybe not even notice, say, as the magic. It's the game magic, we say. But here we go. And say, hopping on with E2 Lapalainen here. Say, first out and setting their main laps. They're going to see some of the sector pace. It's looking pretty good. It's a 28.6 initial sector 1. Little bit of squirreliness heading through the second sector, but otherwise keeping it nice and in check. Good performances we've seen from both the Haas drivers, and looks like it's staying true here.
See, it's a 28.642 first sector. Coast Guard just beat that by a little bit. I'm talking just tiny amounts. Second sector time should come in at a second now for the Haas driver.
Looks a little bit down compared to the rest of the field. They 107 sector 2. Looks a little bit down there.
38.5. It is the fastest so far.
It's heading through the start-finish 9. So initial pace 129.035 from E2. It's looking good for the Hasses. That puts them in a good stead for Q2, but looks like they're going to continue to be heading around. A little bit of recharge, maybe even going again.
It seems to be that they are very capable. Now, As Coast Guard, I knew he was on a flyer. I'll give you an interesting one right now, mate. If you want to have a look at our Audi, our fashion statement man of Jason, setting a fashion statement and electing to say, guys, I know something you don't know. This track's made for Inter tires.
That'll be quite the... Oh, and an interesting line we see heading through. Certainly will be an invalidation.
It's a shortcut.
For the McLaren there. An interesting strategy to be sure.
And making sure that he's tricked the track limit sensors. Can pull that one off and nobody even notices.
But there we are, hopping on board with Will Casson here in the Aston Martin. Also running the A-Spec model, an interesting choice considering their B-Spec has later shown better performance. But it looks like they're putting it to good use as a Purple Sector 1, at least for the time being. Heading through Sector 2, it's looking good. Taking that esports line, as you say, getting it nice and early on the power. Heading through the S's and into the exit. Heading into Sector 3, it looks like about 2/10 down on previous. It's looking good for the Aston Martin. See it gunning it right down the back straight. Hitting, say, 191 miles an hour. So good initial speed. What time are we going to see here? It's a 128.2. What a run there from the Aston. Say surpassing the fastest Q1 time, the first to do so, and what I'm sure we'll see many across the field do similar.
Keep an eye on AJ there back in the other Williams. He just set up the fastest 2 purple sectors immediately off the bat. So, you know, obviously a man that's aware that could be an invalidation coming to the corner. Does he save it?
And looks like it's just about safe.
Yeah. That cost him that third sector. That cost him the fastest lap there. But it doesn't matter. Only you need to get the next part of qualifying. I think that may very well be safe. Because remember, I told you it's about 6/10 is what you need. And currently, if you go to 6/10, that would be around in between where both the Hasses are. So I wouldn't want to be... You have to be inside a second, I think. These times are going to start tumbling. Still have 8 minutes left of qualifying.
Let's say heading on board with the other AlphaTauri, say Noah Ilakorpi. They're a couple tenths down on the first sector. So they are managing to finally get some clean air. Looks like they were stuck behind AJ for a good part of that, so maybe a little bit of dirty air might have played into that time loss. Although these chassis, not the most for generating dirty air and being affected by it, so with, of course, with the shift to underbody downforce. But looks like otherwise keeping a good run and a good line through Sector 2. Really, again, maximizing that track width to the fullest. Looks like your fastest Sector 2 as well, which is always an indicative of maybe they're starting to feel that confidence in the car. The setup is working here. And they're heading through into... Heading through into the final sector. I think we really are. This is the point where we start to see a lot of drivers have a little more confidence in their car. They know the limits. They've learned to push it correctly. And there we go. Noah setting a 128.2, just 34 milliseconds behind the current pole sitter. It's a good run from that AlphaTauri.
And, well, what is his teammate doing? Because Jason is still running around on Inter tires. I'm sure he's away. He does have 7 minutes left of qualifying, but I guess is he doing this deliberately? Is he confident he can just go out there and put a set of softs on, get a good time in, see the next part of qualifying? Is this a tactic just to save a set of tires?
Potentially. Now, and you see coming in now. There, that might have been either a strategic...
Starting last. Not 100% sure on that one yet, because we haven't heard anything from the team. Traffic isn't too bad to get to this track, mate. How was your flight over as well?
Yeah, I didn't have all that much problems. So being realistic, I say it wasn't too bad.
I do have a bit of an issue. I don't like coming here to Bahrain because I can't enjoy my and wine. It's a dry country.
Of course, that is, as I say, a cultural choice. I say we all. So ultimately, that is how the country operates, and that's something that we got to work with. I say, as sure as we love it.
I smuggled a bottle in your suitcase, but so don't worry about it.
Hey.
Yeah, I put it in yours because I don't want to get caught with it. Thank you, by the way.
Let's say, what are friends for? Taking the sentence,
Yeah.
apparently. But
Of course, I we'd never do that. Just messing around. I haven't been to Bahrain. Have been into Abu Dhabi and Dubai. Of course, you know, the Arab Emirates, and it's to see and do there. Go skiing in the mall if you really want. Haven't been to the Ferrari park yet in Abu Dhabi. That wasn't built when I was there.
has been a point of curiosity I've always wanted to check out as well. You can see the second wave of drivers are starting to peel out here. So 4 minutes, just over 4 minutes left on the clock here. There's the last chance for drivers to potentially shift themselves around, get themselves out into safe territory, or at least extend their lead and make sure they are well and truly safe from relegation. So far, we have Yelty, Loke, Hardwick, Bashford, and McCleary all facing potential relegation. So, you know, as they are all coming out on their outlaps, these guys are all going to be pushing to try and get themselves into safe territory. But so far, the spread is 1.2 seconds, and we know for a fact that is going to drop much tighter as these final minutes clock down.
It's 0.8 to E2, so that's what I'm saying. That'll probably be close enough to safe. We'll see. Jason obviously is on an outlap, so he's got, not messing around anymore. We'll find out whether that strategy does pay off and he can easily get himself into that top 10 if he felt confident enough doing it by going around the Inters for a couple of laps. Bjorn's gone in, so his teammate has not his teammate, one of the house drivers has gone up to 6/10. Maybe feel that's enough. So that you can sit in the garage for a couple more minutes and then make that decision if you want to go back out to try to defend anybody potentially.
Yeah, of course, if you're around P8, P9, P10, you are at danger. You are at risk of being relegated. Jacob setting down a 129.1. It's good, but it's ultimately not good enough to get themselves out of relegation. Looks like Frederick Meyer has been pushed out into relegation here as we had a lap set from, in fact, I think it was Ryan.
Just jumped in there to P7 and pushed him down.
So Ryan
Peter's on a flyer.
P7.
Thomas is on a flyer. Jason's on a flyer. But Peter's probably the next one to come up on the line there. So if you want to keep an eye on him, everybody else is just maybe increasing their times.
Yet here we go. So Peter has a look heading through. Looks like they are on good pace so far. On green sectors. But can they bring that pace and bring themselves out of the danger zone? Say Hardwick yielded for their teammate. Maybe they had a bit of a struggle lap and chose to work for the team. And there we go. It's a 128.5. They are up into P5. They have pushed Bashford down into the relegation zone. Hardwick is next on to set their flying lap.
Jason as well. Jason probably just started the first sector on his flying lap. 28.8. That's
Bashford.
Okay, but it's not the best.
Yeah, I say Bashford coming through, not going to have an improvement. They're on their last chance now to improve and get themselves out of relegation. Jason coming through.
So I think
14.
Jason does not. Only 1.2 seconds. You get another lap, and I don't think it has any battery.
It's
what
only
about
enough
Thomas?
for 14th place.
Yeah. No, he hasn't got enough battery. So I think he may be very much eliminated. Thomas is on the bubble now. He does have battery. He's in an Alpine. He's got a 28.7 first sector. That's so-so. I gotta remember, 28.3 was the quickest from AJ. So you're already half a second down here almost. Oh, say 3/10. So say 3/10 down already. Puts him around where EJ currently is. But let's have a look at the middle sector. 38.3. That's not 37 points, so about another 3/10 down. He's about 6/10 territory here. He's got to make it all up in this third one. And doesn't do it. Yeah, 8/10. Wow. And then I actually thought 8/10 would get you inside the top 10, but they've sliced it down to 6/10.
Yeah, it is just not enough in this case. I say as much of an improvement as it is, it's not going to be enough to swing the result. And I say hopping on next, we have looks like Jesper Ten Haken on their outlap, so they are potentially in the danger zone along with Bjorn. Ryan, who has left the session and ultimately put faith in their final performance, as they were seeing some of the top runners clocking in and sort of saying, "Yep, I'm happy with this. I feel like I'm going to be in safe hands." To say Bashford also
Haken's safe,
out.
I'd say, yeah, Haken's safe. It's Frederick right now on the fly. The Ferrari driver did not have a very good middle sector. In fact, he had a horrible middle sector, and he's abandoned his lap. So that's it for the Ferrari is out.
Yeah, so a lot of the bottom runners are relegating themselves to the zone and dropping themselves out of Q2. So we have Noah coming through. We're going to see an improvement from the AlphaTauri. We are. It's going to be a 128.1 from the AlphaTauri. It's a brilliant performance from Noah Ilakorpi there.
That's a little show-off lap there because it wasn't required. Was safe.
I think that's a statement. I think that's definitely a statement to say, yes, don't count me out of this fight. Just because I'm in the sister team does not mean I'm inferior. And that's clearly being put on display right there. Hardwick is going to abandon their lap and settle themselves into a P13. Bjorn coming in P4. A good performance, putting a 128.5 on the boards and getting themselves well out of danger zone. But all of the other drivers at this point are safe. Ten Haken is going to be coming through and finishing their time, and that is going to be Q2.
Yeah, and the polls out there, is he showing off, yes or right? Because he did 3 laps as well, on the softs, so you're burning an extra set of softs so you don't necessarily need to, but we don't know what they're going to be using in the race. Are they going to electing to go mediums and hards? And that's what we question for you guys out there in the chat. And what's good, as you'd mentioned there, is that both Bjorn and AJ are through because they have to serve a 6 and 3 place grid penalty, so it's very important for them to get as high as possible. Now it's very important. You got to be kind of like, if you're AJ, you got to go for that pole position, don't you? Same with Bjorn, just go for that pole. You won't be starting there, unfortunately, but at least you know you're going to have it in your head that, hey, I got the pole position. It's always going to feel good. But that's whether or not Noah wants to give that one up, doesn't it? Because it looks like he's showing off.
Yeah, of course, putting in a strong performance, say Noah with a 128.1. Really just, as we said, putting out that statement of intent is that even with the other 2 runners with the grid penalties, as say AJ and Bjorn, of course, being retroactively applied after qualifying, so their qualifying position, and then it will be plus 3 places for Bjorn and plus 6 places for AJ, respectively. But he definitely put in that statement out there is that we may have some of our front runners in our minds, or the chat will certainly have some people in the back of their minds penned down to be championship front runners. But here comes Noah saying, nope, don't count me out. There's a 3rd player in this equation.
5% chance of rain now. It's increased by 1%.
Oh, he's already maybe
as Speedy says, maybe as what Speedy says out there, inters were optional. There is still a chance of rain, of course, because we're only within the qualifying session. Anything happens in that 45-minute break between. I'm still be praying for that. I'm going to get out there and do a Biggles rain dance, and if I have to, in between the qualifying and race to see what's going to happen.
Yeah,
I just want to see, because I pretty much guarantee that none of these drivers have ever practiced in, well, let's say inters. I don't think you're ever going to get a full wet race, but I don't think any of them ever practiced. Well, then again, we have just saw a driver practice in the inters, so maybe they are aware of that, who was just eliminated, of course, before. Maybe he was aware that there's going to be some wet racing around here. I'm still going to keep trying for it. Poll out there was Noah showing off. 71% of us agree. Was in one of those percent. I think he was.
Yeah, well, sometimes if you get the opportunity, so you know you're safe, you can afford it a little bit. And I'm sure that Noah felt that they could afford a little bit of showboating. Question is, of course, as they tire sets may come back to bite them, depending on how much they used that one.
All 9 drivers are out at the moment. Only Jasper sitting in the pit lane. So they're taking advantage. This is this last 10-minute shootout for the top 10, as you probably know, is practically just 2 laps, I'd say, isn't it? Yeah. 1 lap, because you got your out lap, of course. You got your flying lap, then you got your in lap, come back in the pit lane, then you got another time to go out there and do it again. That's it, because we know that the battery doesn't do you 2 laps here.
Yeah, it's one shot. You've got to gun it and say no other way around it. Say I got to just send it and say put faith in those brief performances before, like you say, battery runs out, so you might as well be not running after that point anyway. So here you go, just going to see.
And it's interesting point that you mentioned, as you said, we were at the moment watching the Aston Martin. You said there's 2 specs of this Aston Martin car?
Yeah, so in fun fact, and in fact it caused a little bit of controversy in the paddock, is that after a few rounds, I believe it was the Spanish Grand Prix, Aston Martin came out with a B-spec edition of their car that had a lot of the downdraft design, very similar to what we see with the Red Bull chassis. And while it was protested, in fact, it was cleared by the FIA and sanctioned for use because those design documents were listed as a B-spec since the beginning of the season. So no accusations of, say, plagiarism or espionage were upheld. There's a little bit of fun tidbit.
Force India days. And were they the ex-Force India team?
Yeah,
I'm actually curious.
Yeah, so it was Force India, then Racing Point, then Aston Martin, and then...
Okay, there it is. It was Racing Point, sorry, wasn't it, that did the, apparently, copying the Merc.
Yeah, of course, as I say, people were maybe relying on their prior biases, thinking back to the pink Mercedes incident. So there's a 128.297 for Will Casson, putting on a brilliant performance. AJ immediately countering with a 28.217 in that Williams. But yeah, I think people were looking at their prior biases, not taking that into account when they were accusing the team that was previously on the same pedestal for being a pink Mercedes of copying yet another team. But there we go, Noah coming in with a 128 flat. Again, that statement of intent there from the AlphaTauri driver, who is just leaving nothing on the table. Is just, they're out there for one mission, and that mission is to set themselves as one to watch for this race and potentially the rest of this season if they can keep up this level of pace.
That's 2/10 quicker than everybody else. Exactly. That's just another league right now. Everybody out there wants me to do a rain dance. I'll get out there and do a rain dance story about it. I'm going to get the one of those fire trucks and get the hose out there and start spraying the track down if I have to get some rain here. Maybe something that the other drivers might need. If otherwise, no, I might be the one that's just going to be making it rain, of course, and just running away with it. I'm not sure about that reference there, but you know what I mean.
Well, so there we go. We've got Ten Hacken coming through now. I'd say about a 10th down on Prix sector best. And as we head through final sector, say gunning it down the back straight and then the main straight, what time are we going to see? It's looking good so far. Keeping it nice and clean. No squirreliness coming on through the final corner. And that's going to be a 128.106. It's a good time. It's P2 currently.
Brilliant. That's the only one that's within the 1/10 range at the moment, Noah. So brilliant. Very job for your first lap. Generally, the 2 bankers that they're going to get. So that's your banker 1 in for most people. Ryan's still yet to finish up his lap. I think he might have had and didn't get an invalidation.
And
Pete,
also,
of course, as well.
Yep. And to say, it looks like Bjorn also had maybe potential issues heading back into the pits there, because they are now currently on their outlap, where all other drivers are either in the pits after setting a time or in the progress of setting one. Heading through to the final sector.
It just means that, yeah, Bourne might get 2. That's if he could push it. Yeah, let's see what Ryan can do here. Oh, did not like it. It was a 39.3 middle sector. It's yeah, it's about okay. So it's about 4/10, 5/10 slower than everybody else for that. Depending on his first sector, I'm trying to see what happened there. Currently, at the moment, to at least be in the top, up in the top 8. Well, they're all the top 10, of course, but at least be a competitive time. And he realised that. But the team can get some new boots on there and the splash and dash, charge the battery. You wonder if the Williams are using Duracell batteries.
Well, that sponsorship can go a long way. You never know. I'd like to think they're using
one company that manufactures the batteries, I think, for the... Ooh, Bjorn had a little bit of a twitch moment. It might cost you a little bit, but that's 3 out of 4, I think it was. Yes.
Yeah, so burning a little bit of their tyres there. So, of course, they are running a little bit into those softs. So, about 30% mark, you start to see a little bit of pace degradation. Even now, arguably, depending on how aggressive your driving style is. But even so, they need to put a lap in by this point. Is that even if they don't have the most competitive time at this point, unless Ryan Yelty sets a time in these next 4 minutes, which is likely, but still for peace of mind's sake, as they set a fastest sector 2 despite their initial kerfuffle, they can set this time, go on to another rolling lap. And
I'm seeing a 38.3, not the fastest. He's 2/10 down the first sector. He's 4/10 down the second sector. He's going to have to push like mad now.
Oh, but there you go.
No, he's boxing.
Into the pits. He's boxing.
No, he made it in yeah, it's made a little error there. Unfortunately, the FIA played some tricks with us with our sector times.
Yeah, there's a data flow, not the kindest to us on this occasion.
Hey, at least we have electricity, unlike in the Monaco situation.
This is true. We'll take that in this instance. Well, I'll take electricity. There's a starting point. Say you get what you're given.
I think I might have jinxed it as well too. Something's going to happen where I am. I'm going to have to get out there and fire that generator up.
Yeah, so you've got yeah, okay. We used a Caster's Curse token last time out. We've got a few more left to burn still. Just we don't want to put ourselves in any opportune spots. Ripe for the cursing.
Ryan's back out, and a lot of the other drivers back out. Will's back out. I was back out. Emo's back out. Two's back out. I love all these E's.
Yeah, plenty of E's up and down the field right now. So I'm going to hop on board with the opposite end of the Alpha. I say, well, getting very squirrely heading out of turn 1 and into turn 2. Pretty squirrely there, has to be said. Not looking the smoothest, but otherwise setting a good pace overall. Of course, like a pretty high performer, consistently high performer across the qualifyings up to this point. It's a 10th behind E2, as it looks like, which is our current barring according to the graphic. But ultimately, it's slower compared to a lot of others on the track. But question is, at this point, are they going for a full lap, or are they going to be going for a full send on the next one? Because, of course, we have 1 minute 50 left on the clock.
And Will, currently running 15th in the championship, wants to get a good qualifying position here and get a hurl of points. Same with AJ, didn't get any points, and Bjorn didn't get any points. There were the two DNFs last. 50-50% split has gone out there for moment of silence for a default dance for rain. Some of you like rain, some of you don't like rain. I don't guarantee you right now you want rain in some parts of the world because it's stinking hot. Will, fastest middle sector.
And so heading through to the start-finish line, it's going to be a 128.043. So 32 milliseconds behind Noah in the AlphaTauri. It's a very good performance there from that Aston Martin. I think they can sort of reliably sit and knowing that they've put on a good qualifying.
I think next to keep it on the Ferrari. There you go. He's just lit up the timing boards with the fastest middle sector, although Noah's gone back out and Noah's just taking the first sector. But at the moment, keep an eye on the Ferrari. As we know, Noah's probably going to defend. Noah's going to break in the 127s if he can hook it up. Whether or not Emar can get on the second row, he will. I'd say for now, that's a fast speed. It's a 27.9, so they're breaking into that. But, Noah's made a huge mistake. So Noah has not, backed off on the middle sector. AJ's replaced the first sector now. So the Canadian, after a DNF for the first race, will have a 6th-place grid penalty. But if he can put that car up the top, that's the best he can do. And he'll also have some nice bragging rights to say he's back. And what a better way to rebound from a DNF is to perhaps try to win this race. We're all going to try to win this race, but the only way to do it is to put that car up as high as you can for qualifying.
And of course, we still have 2 drivers who are yet to set a qualifying time. So Ryan Yelty and Bjorn de Boer yet to set times, so heading into the pits either through invalidations or finding issues and not getting the run they otherwise would have wanted. So hopping on board with Yelty now. It's looking like they know that this is a do-or-die situation. They're trying to put as much pace down as they can. It's looking good through Sector 1, looking a little bit sideways as we head through some of the chicanes of Sector 2.
AJ up at a P3. And look at this. Look at this. So 15 thousandths of a second. That's 15 thousandths of a second separate P1, P2. then 30 thousandths of a second to AJ, 46 thousandths of a second to Will. We thought it was close last week during the rainy qualifying session, mate. This is unbelievable.
Wow. Yeah, that's...
I think all esports drivers are going to have to retire. This is the new breed. This is the new crew in town.
Yeah,
Brian, of course, is on the bubble here, so he needs to give it everything he can.
All running on the knife's edge, so I can say. You can't ride this sometimes. Is that you see, and there we go. There's another statement there. Noah's immediately coming into eclipse that, a 127.856. So, and a great performance. Ryan's coming through with a 128.637, and then P9, and that is going to be a pretty exhilarating Q3. Absolutely.
Bjorn, unfortunately, will get a 3 grace split penalty, so he'll actually be starting back in P13. That will promote one of the other drivers into the top 10. Should perpendicular become a legal straight? Confused on that one. But, if you'd like to go through our qualifying results for us, please.
Well, there we go. So Noah with a 127.856, a brilliant final run. Really just putting the pace down, linking up the perfect lap there, it seems. Emir with 127.996, heading up just behind. AJ, of course, subject to a 6th place grid penalty, will be P9 for the start, but a 128.026 is a good showing. Will Casson, P4, Aston Martin, Jasper Tanhaken in P5 with a 128.1 in the Mercedes. Peter Locke with the 128.19 in the Alpine. Gustav Korsgaard with a 128.2. E2 Lapalainen with a 128.4. Ryan Yelty with a 128.6 in the Williams, and then Bjorn starting P13 following grid penalty with a 128.7 in the Haas. But what a qualifying that was, honestly.
Absolutely. It'll give me a bit of a break now so that I can get out and do a rain dance. If you want a rain dance, of course, hit the thumbs up, give us a like. We know that the voting poll is going to go on 50-50, but I will be out there. I'll do my dance. I've been trained by the old Aboriginal rain dance method in Australia, so we'll see if it's going to work here in the desert of Bahrain.
There we go. So that was certainly an interesting qualifying session. So really, I just got to give it down to say until Noah came in and absolutely blitzed the field with that 0.8. I really do think that it goes to show that how tightly packed these drivers are is really just putting the skill level on display. It's putting the skill cap. And just how all of these drivers, or like so much of these drivers, are operating at their peak performance.
And hopefully we can obviously have a quick chat to Noah about his qualifying performance. As usually we get a chance to chat to our pole sitter this evening. If we can let Noah jump out of the car there and cool down for a second.
Yeah, of course. They have got time. I'm sure Noah's feeling the adrenaline going through themselves for sure. Because, of course, you set a time like that in a field like that and absolutely eclipse what was else on the board in Q2 and Q3, you are going to be firing on all cylinders, and it's going to be taking a while for you to calm down, potentially, from that.
I'm going to be firing on all cylinders, absolutely. You can't afford to be missing a couple of those cylinders.
Yeah, it can't be switching off 2 for economy. Not in this
V6,
sport.
You need all 6 of them. Yeah, hitting the economy, cruise control maybe even. It'll save you any gas. Not sure if we're going to get Noah or not.
It doesn't look like it. Looks like all the drivers are straight into priming themselves for the race. So we are going to take a short break here. And of course, we will meet you back in about, say, 30-ish minutes time for the race itself. So don't go anywhere, folks. Do not go anywhere.
Well, here we go then. The qualifying is done. It's time for race night, and it's time for race night here at Swift Digital X Racing, presented by Digital S, of course, here in Bahrain, which the term Bahrain comes from El Bahrain, meaning two seas, and Bahrain had the first post-oil economy in the Persian Gulf. This illuminated track is 3.6 miles long, 6 left turns, and 9 rights with 3 mighty, powerful DRS zones that should give and aid a lot of overtaking, and it's always absolutely chaotic. Over to you, Ben, starting grid.
Okay, heading through with the starting grid. First off, we have Noah Ilakorpi, so putting a heroic performance in P1, Emir Djurkovic in P2, Will Kassan, P3 in the Aston Martin, Jasper Tanhaken in the Mercedes in P4. We have Peter Luck and Gustav Kosdard taking the third row of the grid in the Alpine and the Red Bull, respectively. E2 Lapalainen and Ryan Yelty in the 7th and 8th positions. Haas and Williams feeling very proud of themselves with their performances. AJ Jackson and Joshua Basford in P9 and P10. Of course, JJ serving their free 6th place penalty. Frederick Martin and Thomas Hardwick in P11, P12. Rounding out, say, gets the double-digit positions. Bjorn de Boer and Jacob Scholten in the Haas and McLaren's. Of course, Bjorn also serving a penalty. 3 positions. Liam Markham, Cameron Sell in P15 and P16. Then P17, rounding off the grid, we have Jason McCleary, who also seems to be some penalty in their Alpha Tauri. Of course, a lot of these drivers putting in some heroic performances in qualifying, but especially in the cases of AJ and AJ and Bjorn, we have certainly some issues when it comes to grid penalties. They're certainly feeling the effects of that one, are they not?
I think absolutely, but at least it's, I would have to say, take a grid penalty, you take it at the start of the season, isn't it? Because you're on 0 points, so you have nothing to lose. Later on in the season, of course, be coming down to the wire, as obviously we do going to be going all the way through the season and all the way at the end on round 17 in Abu Dhabi. So that's kind of around the places where you don't want to be taking grid penalties that deep into the season, as the drivers are getting way for their formation lap. Check out those tires, because that's what we were kind of debating before there, what they're going to be doing. They all did all soft tires for the qualifying, but thankfully this year they don't have to go back to their soft tires. They got to elect to choose all brand new tires, and then you can see at the moment everybody electing to go to the mediums. In fact, I do kind of really, Ben, miss that, really, the fact that they would have had to start on some tires that weren't going to last very long, but now it is 2022 rules.
Yeah, of course. They had to consider, say, the longer-term strategy of the race as a track temps. Just taking a look at sort of those quickly, having a look at the weather. Say currently 24 degrees C air temp, 30 degrees C track temp. So the lowest that we have seen over the course of the sessions. Of course, still warm enough to generate plenty of heat in those tires. But especially considering, I believe we were in the 40s back in Australia. Maybe they're going for a longer wearing compound, just because with the lower track temps, and of course running at night, there's not as much aggressive tyre wear.
Yeah, you're absolutely right on that one. Fortunately, my rain dance did not work well yet, because it is showing at the moment about a 9% chance of rain. So it's increased from the 4% that we had earlier. But then again, don't think we're going to have an 81% chance of any rain coming in any point later on, or not coming. Welcome, everybody, to our second race of the season. And we'll keep an eye out and give us any idea on your safety car predictions. If you want to say, if there's going to be a safety car, if you want a safety car, what lap? Over to you, Ben, to call Noah off the line in his pole position and see if the Ferrari driver of Emil can do anything about it into turn 1. You're going to see 17 cars in the turn 1.
Yeah, of course, they're putting on some really, really strong performances in qualifying, the both of them, as we wait. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 red lights. And we are away. It's a very good set-off for Emir there, and so is Will Casanova, dropping a little bit behind here. Looks like they're having a little bit of issues with the set-off. Say, the camera gods will bless us a little bit better this time around. But no, looking like they're getting away from the rest of the field. It's pushing on, pushing hard, and trying to make the best breakaway we can. Of course, they haven't got necessarily tyre advantage compared to the rest of the field. Looks like a little bit of shuffling. Jesper Tanhaken up in P4, trying to look around the inside, not quite going to have it. Will Kassan going wide, washing really far out compared to some of the other drivers, say, and looking down at the midfield, seeing them all flying through here. got the heat in those tires. It's going to be side by side with Kassen and Tan Hacken right about now. And see how they are doing.
Absolutely crazy start. There's a few places, of course. Will still battling up Jasper. Ryan and AJ are battling it out. Like Cameron went around there, the Red Bull, back at P17. He just joined, obviously, after coming in a little bit late. Missed the qualifying session, but joining in the moment. Keep an eye on there. That battle still. P4 is it carrying, and that's Will. Look at the background there. Peter Locke. Wants to join this.
But yeah, in terms of tyre strategy as well, not to mention, say we have what looks like a one-stop strategy going on for the majority of the field, say spacing themselves out and really just trying to maximize more hard-wearing characteristics of the longer stint compounds. But it looks like Jasper Tan Hacken's fallen away.
There's an accident. There's an accident back where Frederick is. I think that was maybe Liam Frederick. There was an accident, and Korgs as well, the other Red Bull. Korsgaard's gone around. Also keep an eye on that one a little bit later, of course, because now Choose going for Peter into turn 1. Yes, of course, then turn 2, turn 3. There's your classic overtaking. AJ and Ryan still battling it out for P10 and P11. Action all over the place. Certainly keeping us as sharp as we possibly can. AJ still hasn't got past there just yet, but that's a battle for P10 with Ryan. And also keep an eye on Frederick is a part of that one. So, yeah, there's action absolutely everywhere. It's probably the closest right now back to those guys. And they've been out 2 for now right now. I thought they were almost teammates. And they are teammates. No, they are, of course. Those colours look a little bit different. But those Williams drivers, mate, I'm not sure there's any team orders there. No number 1, number 2 driver, because they're just out at 2 for now.
Yeah, they're really not giving each other any space to breathe. So we saw heading to the sector 2, say Ryan had to, unfortunately, back off. Maybe you say unfortunate to their ego a little bit. Of course, say driver's pride, maybe putting a little bit of a play in there. May not have adjusted to the fact that AJ is now their teammate as they get a little bit wiggly heading out through the second sector. So a little bit bent out of shape there in that Williams. Not necessarily having the same stability they otherwise would have liked. Maybe it's used to the soft compound from qualifying and haven't fully acclimatized. But yeah, I don't think we're seeing any team orders at play. I think they're just sort of being left to their own devices, and ultimately, if they're not careful, might compromise the team's overall performance, as we're seeing the time sheet starting to clock right down. We say 131.7 peak currently from Jasper Tan Hacken, and it's looking good so far, as a lot of drivers are trying to make the breakaway and try and get as much of a run as they can before DRS becomes a major factor.
And the Red Bull driver of CosAnimeDesigns, unfortunately, had a good race last week. Was inside the top 10, but a little spin there, a little bit of contact. We didn't quite catch out what happened with the cameras, but dropped him back to P14, putting in a flyout to try to catch back up. This is a man that started on P6, currently at the moment running on P16, 14, my apologies. So that's, so the biggest gainers and losers so far from the start of the race is obviously, I'd have to say, Liam Markham. He's up into P9, so that top 10 after his not very great qualifying performance.
Yeah,
I believe that he had some issue or something to sort out in the garage, which is the reason why it inhibited his qualifying performance. But you don't get paid for qualifying points. You get paid for the race points. And so far, he's behind his teammate in P9, so I think we're pretty happy with that.
Yeah, you can definitely say that things have sort of spun in their favour. Like, unfortunately, we didn't get quite the angles that we wanted to capture all of the on-track action in the early stages. But regardless, where, say, qualifying not been the best for them, not put them in the best start position, as it looks like they're right now, they're on the defence from AJ here. It looks like they are still making the most.
And also a challenge for the lead of the race
situation
at the moment. If you want to switch over to that one, it looks like the Ferrari's got to try to do something about now in the turn 1, and he has, with the DRS advantage. Boom, done it. Unfortunately, Ferrari Road is it's a little bit further, a couple of countries over down the road there, if you want to go to Ferrari World, because that'll be at the end of the season. But so Will's had a spin. Oh, that's Aston Martin. Is that contact? That's contact right now. Will and AJ, I believe it is. It is for sure. And that's AJ, I think, in the wars again. He's got a grid place penalty. Now he's dropping all the way down to P15, and I think Will's got damage. I'm sure AJ has damage as well. Pretty sure he looks like he might. I don't know. It's very hard to say.
Yeah, so it's hard to tell.
A little bit of end plate damage, but I don't think it's boxable at this point.
Yeah, so certainly putting the work in, say trying to recover from otherwise a difficult situation. Looks like there was some collision and a little bit of damage affecting both of the cars. Out, so looking at the field, just say we've got of course a heater battle for P1, but looks like
there's also Jason
spin.
Yeah.
So getting a bit too loose coming through second sector, heading into the DRS zone, just getting too loose and ultimately losing out big time.
Jason probably wondering where those inter tires that he had during qualifying are parked in the garage, mate. Unfortunately, my rain dance didn't work. So now Noah's got back ahead of the Ferrari, so I kind of missed what happened there. But now the Ferrari's going to try and make another run here into turn 1 with that DRS activation. Goes on the outside. Noah forces. Noah's going to defend this one now. He's only going to go through second, 2, and 3 as you kink it over. And look at that. Noah did try to defend like mad this time around. Ferrari's got it, but oh, so long. Because now you got the next back straight. That's what I love about this track, friend. Ben, you can almost go side by side through majority of the circuit.
Yeah, it's a test of bravery. It's definitely a test of bravery, however. So we saw Amir doing very well to cover off the inside, go defensive, heading through the end of the second sector, say the first DRS zone. Doing very well, hold their position despite what clearly is, thanks to the DRS and maybe a little bit of resource management as well, what is a little bit of a pace disadvantage. As we've got Noah quickly closing in once again. DRS fully open, but doesn't look like it's going to be enough. As they're chasing through and really chasing each other down here. And you can tell by some of the speeds that they're hitting through the second and heading into the third sector that both drivers are really putting in the test to each other and seeing who is really going to come out on top. It's a test of mettle for them both.
I think he's coming out on top at the moment. Would have to be Jasper, just a little bit down the Merc, because he's now pulled him into almost half a second. He set the fastest lap before, so a couple laps ago, so he has the fastest lap. And this battle off the road, he's got a big smile on his face, of course, because he's going to have that DRS himself and be up there at the 3 there, and he got a bit of a gap down there. And once again, there's an exchange into turn 1. Emir really wants it, but now, as I said, look at this. It's a 3-way party because Jasper's here.
Yeah, but given everything that has been said, is that of course Jasper has reeled them back into the fight and saying now it's a 3-way battle for the front, but they have burnt a lot of their resource in doing so. So they're only on about 15% energy, so they're going to have to rely on the continued fighting between Emir and Noah as a means to recharge their own battery, maybe play it a little bit slower and let their fighting drag them back. But ultimately, he's got to think about E2, who's also going to be coming up if he lets them go on for too long. Yeah,
you're right, exactly. I'll keep an eye on E2's times in a second on the last lap, see if he's going to be definitely joining them. If he's doing 32.7s, maybe the leader's doing a 32.9. That's just interesting because, of course, they're exchanging places here. The car behind with the DRS generally will always be a little bit quicker. But exactly, that DRS is almighty in power. Liam is catching the back of Pete as well as Ryan, but having a local yellow. That is a Red Bull. I think that could be... That's Coast Guard. Oh, no.
Well, that looks like Coast Guard having another issue.
Yep.
Not sure what's going on with them right now, but it's certainly not looking good for either of the Red Bulls. I say, of course, we've got Cameron right down at the back, as say not being able to make it for qualifying, so being relegated to the back of the grid. And I say we have Cause Guard also being seemingly in a world of their own when it comes to issues on track. So it's not looking good for them, and neither for McLaren right now. So they've had quite their own fair share of issues as well. So Jacob Shelton just under 20 seconds behind their next competitor in McLaren, even considering some of the hiccups that they had on track also.
You gotta feel for Jacob too. He's the only one actually representing the McLaren car this evening. So a switcheroo again, but look at this time around. Noah has now dropped about 8/10. So the Ferraris just pulled off a masterclass here and just burnt whatever he might needed to. Somebody wanted to go on board with Ryan. It just maybe in a second for sure. Ryan is definitely just behind Liam. Bjorn, I think Bjorn's going to overtake there as well on the other Ferrari of Frederick, but yeah, what's up to you, Mr. Race Director, if you want to go with? Yeah, exactly, you didn't. Run on cue there. See, we like our audience out there, so try to do our best to keep you entertained.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. And so heading through, I think we're seeing a lot of different strategies at play here. So looking and keeping tabs on some of the resources. A lot of drivers have opted for potentially quite an early burn. You can see Ryan in the bid to keep up with Liam has ultimately burnt through down to the last quarter of their battery reserves. Not to mention, they're probably going to be burning a little bit on the tyre life front. You can see 40% on the rears at most right about now. And this is where we start to see some difference in strategy and maybe some differences and aggression.
AJ is coming back at the moment after having a bit of a tangle moment. We know that AJ is nursing a little bit of damage on the front end plate. Emir pulled in the fastest lap. Emir, and he's trying to pull that gap away. He's almost out of DRS. So a masterclass strategy, whatever he saved up, whatever he's doing, is obviously working. Obviously, still once again, Ryan's probably still that closest battle that we mentioned with Liam there. Battle for P7.
But yeah, so it's looking strong. So because AJ really is pushing as well, because they currently sit at the top of the timesheets with a 131.449. And it's overall looking like a very strong, potentially we could see a bit of a comeback drive, especially if they put strategy to good use and make use a little bit more of what is otherwise some open track space.
You never give up, of course, not this early in the championship at all. You should never give up anyway. And I show Ryan, I would say AJ wants to get some points on the board, of course. He did a good qualifying performance. And you can't let one little spin early in a race get your hopes and dreams down. We still a lot of round of pit stops to go, at least, as we're not even about 1/3 of the way through here. Bit of weaving occurring there from Liam. And he's going to have to defend.
Potentially getting a little bit unsettled there, so starting to feel the pressure, and it looks like that pressure has been felt well and truly. We're heading through DRS and through turn 1. Ryan has made the move on the Alfa Romeo. Is Liam going to immediately respond?
And also beyond it on Joshua behind. So the two overtakes there for the 8, 9, and 10 and 11. Classic, it's always a fun place to overtake. You got to make sure you got a good exit out of 2 and 3. But of course, they can always start charging back with the other DRS zones.
Yeah, and I think again...
Emir has dropped a 1.3 second gap, so he's broken the DRS and up the road. But these battles are still resuming here for the other crucial points-paying positions.
It looks like they're going to be a little bit of a coming together between Ryan and Liam there. So a little bit of a tyre bump. Heading through, say, second DRS zone. Liam is going to have the DRS. He's ultimately going to close the door on the Williams and heading into Sector 3. It's a dangerous move. So potentially maybe one that Stewart might take a bit of an eye to. But otherwise, the move, at least for now, hasn't been done. The question is, how far will they be able to fend? It looks again very unsettled in that Williams. Yelty has potentially lost what otherwise would have been an overtake on the DRS on the main straight.
Also, I was keeping an eye on Joshua, Thomas, and Peter. They're just hanging in there. Both of those Alpine drivers are just towing each other. I don't think Pete really wants to get an overtake just yet. Although maybe there might be sweeping around there to try to charge those batteries up. AJ is really close on the back of Joshua now as well on a charge back. In fact, I think he's just about ahead now too. Yes, he is. So there is the Canadian driver. Nursing probably about 8% end plate damage too. So it's a little bit to affect you, but not, thankfully, too drastic.
Yeah, and of course, to say the overbody downforce parts not playing as strong of a role as they once did before, whereas they maybe in anything above 10% end plate damage would have been a replaced wing in a lot of circumstances before. This time, you can afford a little bit of damage soak. Not to say that these cars are hard wearing by any stretch, but definitely that you can afford a little bit more of bumper-to-bumper racing before having to make that judgment call and head in. It's got a little bit too rough, potentially.
Local yellow for a Red Bull, I think, stopped again on the track. This time, I'm not sure if it was Cameron or anyway, but keep an eye on Ryan once again.
Yeah, so it looks like it was Korsgaard once again, though. Yeah, not having a very good race they are. So really seeming to be struggling right about now. maybe I say not having quite the best setup, not having the setup they otherwise would have want. We're definitely already seen some variances in setup, because some drivers have got a lot more worn rears and some drivers have a lot more worn fronts. Usually you want to be right in the middle for what we call, say, much more balanced setup. Those, of course, be overusing a certain set of tires in the front or rear. That's going to affect your tires characteristics and your car's characteristics heading through. Looks like a little bit of contact between Frederick and Liam heading through. Someone is off the track. Looks like Locke.
Yeah, that's one of the Alpines. I wonder if the Alpines have come together, because they were really close. Thomas and Peter's gone off somewhere, and now he's under the clutches of Joshua. P 11 and 12. So whatever the Alpine strategy was there, so unless they just had a mistake on their own, or hope there wasn't contact between the teammates. Not this early in the season. You don't want to have to put up with the teammates battling for the rest of the season. We've seen that before, haven't we, in Motorsports? Prost and Senna and all that sort of jazz, and with teammates, of course. But we also have Jacob is retired in the pit lane. I think that McLaren driver just not a happy camper here in Bahrain.
Yeah, that is a pit retirement there. So we're going to peek our heads forward a little bit as Bjorn and AJ are in a heated battle right about now.
Oh, this is going to be very scary as well, too, because both of these drivers were the only two DNFs last week. So I'm sure at the moment that's fresh in their minds, and realize, okay, at least, you know, they're not teammates, but, you know, AJ and Bjorn going, okay, let's at least see the checkered flag tonight. Right, both of us, can we handshake on that one?
At least let's agree to bring it home and say we don't want to make it 0 for 2. But heading through, say, Bjorn backing off a little bit. I think they're feeling the lack of grip, the compound disadvantage between themselves and the mediums. But even so, they're, as I say, starting to see some people pit, but they're otherwise doing well to manage their resources. They're about 50% right now, so not going for the early burn like some of the other drivers, playing a little bit safer, using the harder compound before presumably switching to the mediums after the halfway race point, and really just seeing what the longer game can take them to. It's going to be a good...
And the battle of the Ferrari powers. Sorry to cut you off there. Liam and Frederick, there could have been a little bit of contact here. And that's the Ferrari-powered engines. It's Frederick trying to send it there, but look at that immediate comeback there from Liam. So Liam going to get a better exit. And that's tight. That's definitely contact as they're going to make a little bit of a run through the tight turn. And then 10, get a good exit. DRS now. Get it. Liam had the DRS. He will. So can he charge back? He's got to get really close. I don't think it's going to be close enough to Frederick into that turn. You got to remember up there just catching. I think you just see, and that's obviously bringing AJ into play here. So AJ's got a couple of cars to deal with. And will it be hurting their tires because they're hovering around the 40s in the fronts now, medium runners?
Yeah, and of course, as we've got Frederick say on heated defense there. A little bit of a track extension heading through into the third sector, as they might potentially be putting them on the warnings, which means that they're going to have to start being a bit more careful. Track limits heading forward, but coming through here, DRS being a big player, is about 20 kilometers an hour difference. It's going to be close.
Could be 3 into 1 here.
And AJ is boxed behind to say, of course, Maya taking the inside, fending off from Liam, who takes the outside. And of course, AJ is stuck right behind, but looks like they're going to get the run heading through into the second DRS zone. Are they going to be able to capitalize? No, again, they are going to be boxed in, although Liam has managed to get a good run and is currently right side by side heading through to the
on the
second
edge of your
sector.
seat.
Is on the attack of each other. So Liam is going to be ultimately through.
AJ's
going
for
to
it.
immediately be coming sweeping back after as well. And of course, Fredericks, they burnt all their resources. They're out of battery. They can't continue that fight.
Moment. And Bjorn's caught back up to this one. So by battling, it's allowing the Haas, and there's going to be another run. AJ should have the DRS. He will have the DRS. And now you got to commit to it at this point. And around the outside, he's gone too deep.
Sideways.
And there's a collision.
And it's a three-way collision. It's AJ, Frederick, and Bjorn. They're all in the wall. Well, not in the wall, or in each other's walls. Sorry.
Imaz are actually boxing too for the Ferrari, and so is Noah. So is Jasper. Is it because they were expecting probably maybe a virtual safety car on that one, but didn't pay off, but they've committed to the pit lane?
Yeah, there was that immediate kickback, and it's certainly going to affect the hard runners, because of course that's going to compromise their strategy completely. You got to think they might as well go for a tire change if they've got damage, but if you're on the hards, that's really going to compromise your strategy.
They're all going in. I thought AJ has he has a little bit more damage than he had before, but believe it or not, still gets away with only a small amount of front wing. But he's going to have to change his full front wing now. Frederick as well. Not quite sure if the Ferrari driver did, and Bjorn got damaged. Bjorn did get damaged on that front wing. Oh, it's all gone pole-shaped. It's because AJ went a little bit too deep, lost the rear end, and of course the other two drivers were there and nowhere to go. So, but don't give up. Bjorn and AJ, you need to finish this race. That was the gentleman's agreement.
They've got to make it
Even if you're
through.
last place, just get it done. Exactly.
But no, otherwise, what a great performance up until that point. Is all of the drivers not afraid to get it wheel to wheel, as it looks like we have seen another retirement from Gustav Korsgaard. Of course, somewhat to be expected, given that they were having quite a few issues on track, and ultimately decided maybe it's not worth it. It's save the car for the next race and play it a little bit safer this time round.
I'd have to say, usually if he's going to be retiring at that point, he's struggling, of course, but once again, he could turn it into a nice practice session under a race condition, even if you are pumped last. But that just seems to me like just too much damage in the car that he didn't want to continue.
Yeah, and ultimately they are going to be racking up costs as they go. So maybe, say, opted to save the car, be a little bit more conservative with the otherwise limited resources, and really just go for the best they can make of it, but not compromising their setups for later races.
We called it, and at the moment, calling there's only a Jason that's still out on the original tires he started the race with, actually. Yes. And that's it. And Cameron. Actually, Cameron had a very early pit stop. I believe something's a little bit... Yeah, and he's back out on his older hard tires. Yeah, I'm now losing a position, I think, to Peter. Yes, it is. So the Alpine's up into P8. And that's Peter, who had a little bit of a mistake. We're not quite sure if it was a tangle with his teammate or if he just made an error. But should be, obviously, running P4, P5. At the moment, Peter's trying to defend off Liam, or Liam's trying to make an overtake. And it's helping Liam's teammate, Joshua, just in the background there, right within. If I was Liam Team Orders, I would have to say, you want to lift a little bit, right? Allow Joshua into this one, and then go attacking Peter.
Yeah, they bring in as much performance as a collective, as a team, that you possibly can. And so, of course, capitalizing on the Alpine's mistake, whether that by their own omission or by a simple mistake. I'd like to think that it was simply a personal mistake, maybe getting too much on the throttle coming out, maybe turns 2 and 3, because if it was a mistake, if there was contact between the two, and to see the result that we did with Peter, that would have suggested contact and damage from Hardwick, which I don't think we're seeing, given that they are still retaining P4.
It's a gamble you play when you're going to run two teammates close together. Now, it works off if you can switcheroo, somebody can harness the energy behind, and the other one burns it. But when you're racing close side by side with your teammate, you've got to have a lot of trust and a lot of reliability that something's going to go wrong. And of course, if one driver makes a mistake at the front, and you can actually take both of each other out. This has panned out because Joshua now has caught that DRS. Peter now trying to make a run on Jason. Jason's very old tires. Still from the start. I don't think he's going to be able to put up too much of a defense right now. Jason probably stretching these ones out to go definitely deep into the mediums.
And as you can see there, it's just all... It's coming to show the differences in grip. Even on the same compound, say 10 laps in, 15 laps in, as we see with Jason, is even though the hard compounds are typically a lot more durable, they still do have that drop-off. And I think that's something we're seeing.
I think that overtake helped Peter as well, too, because it almost broke the DRS from Liam, but Liam is now climbing back. That's the battle. I think Joshua will be past Jason anytime soon. I think Jason's going to put up too much of a fight there because he's on that alternative strategy. He knows he's going to be a lot quicker later on in the race when he elects to box. He can still do, I'd have to say, about 3 laps easily. Depending on how much pace you're going to lose per lap. That's the key. Jason's lapping 42.7s. Everybody's doing 34.7. Everybody's doing 32.4s. So I think if his engineer says you start breaking in the 35s, you get a box.
Yeah, so ultimately it is that judgment call. Some drivers are better at maximizing the life of their tires than others, so more aggressive turn in, more progressive, maybe through the mid corner. All these different nuances of your driving style ultimately read into how well you'll keep the tires running. As I say, looking 56% on the rear left. Looks like that tyre in particular sees a lot of wear around this course, as AJ comes through with a 131.4, so fastest lap on the hard compound, breaking the timesheets as they are trying to surge back up to the top potentially.
And I think AJ, did he take a front wing change? Yes, he did in the pit stop, so that cost him a little bit more. But AJ's been pacey. This is what it meant. I'm sure he would have been happy to be up into the top there, but he had to serve that penalty anyway. Well, E2 is closing in on Thomas. Similar tyres in the DRS range.
And we've still got plenty of battery to burn, so 55% right now.
And just to give you a little bit of an update on those warnings, so far so good actually. I have to say most of these drivers are on 0 warnings and a couple of 1 warnings, but nothing dramatic apart from those penalties you see from everybody on the screen at the moment. But aside from that, not many of the drivers. So we don't have to get your calculator out just yet, mate, and start crunching all those numbers for the penalties like we had to do in Australia.
You have no idea. That's music to my ears right there. The last thing I want to do when juggling this much action on track is having to do a little bit of mental maths and a number crunching on the side. But here we go, heading through, say lap 18 now. So E2 is clocking in just over 200 miles an hour, trying to chase down that Alpine of Hardwick right now. Is a 4/10 between the two. It looks like, for otherwise an eventful race around them. E2 sort of just trying to keep their head down and slowly clock up those positions. So they've gone for this mandated 1 stop. And
Jason's going in as well. So, he's missed his braking marker and he's got to serve a penalty. And that's 5 seconds, and then they're going to slap the mediums on. I figured he has to go to the mediums, of course, because he started on the hards. And now he's got a lot of work to do, but he'll have the quickest boots in town.
Yeah, of course, there is still the 2 compound rule, so you have to change compounds in, unless it is wet conditions, you do have to change compounds once over the course of the race. So any hard runners will immediately be swapping to the mediums the first chance that they get, the first chance it's viable, because no amount of durability is going to overtake the fact that those mediums, they have a significant pace difference, as we initially saw.
And you mentioned about the rain conditions as well. It's increased to 9% chance of rain now. Hopefully we get about 20% or something like that by the end of the race. Yeah, a nice couple of drops would cool everybody down here. They're not going to happen. Still those battles occurring between P2, P3, Jasper, Noah, and E2 and Thomas battling for P4, P5. They're in those DRS ranges. Of course, Will is just on the back of both of the Alfa Romeos that managed to get past AJ on a rampage, of course, but 2 seconds down the road. Keep an eye on Jason's times. He's 20 seconds and change, but he should be putting in some pretty quick laps as he gets comfortable with those tires. And to say which one is it, definitely the house driver of E2. See, that's again, I told you about AJ cranking in the laps. E2, got to find a way past Thomas, but what do you reckon? Is he happy to stay here? Doesn't look like he's really pushing for an overtake yet.
Yeah, it doesn't look like they're going all that hard on it and being brutally honest here. Say, hopping in with their POV, say they're not going overly hard on the overtake button. They're keeping their resources. I think they're just opting to keep the pressure on, keep them within arm's length, so that when they have that perfect chance to make the move, they can go through it without issue.
Man, further back, you might have to look at Joshua, who's getting very close on the back of Will. Actually, Will got past, I believe, because yes, those AlphaTauris were a lie to stone, but Will's on the old boots here. He's going to have to box at some point. Again, he will have to box again. He doesn't have to, of course. He can make those hards go to the end because he had an earlier pit stop, but that's a stretch considering his boots are about 55 rear. Yeah, no, you're not going to make them go to the end, my friend. As much as you can sing and dance and buy them flowers, they're not at a date that's not going to be able to go home with you. There he is. I'm trying to keep it all good. Anyway, let's not talk about dating your tires. Take care of them.
Yeah, so the relationship, whatever form it takes, we'll say the relationship between you, your tires, your car, it's all important because you need to understand how they behave, how they're going to work.
Back
on
to E2. Sorry, E2 got too early. Yeah, because there's battles all over the place. He got really close as well to the back of the Alpine. Good defending there, driving from Thomas. holding off as much as he possibly can, taking the racing, the esports line. Once again, it seems like E2 is getting close and then just backing off, saving some energy. Happy to sit here and get the DRS train. The key is how much time they lose into the leaders. Because Emor is lapping in the 190s, 131s, the only one. Everybody else is lapping around the early-ish 32s. So good pace, I'd say.
Yeah, so keeping the pace on tap, definitely. I think it's just that consistency is where we're starting to see coming into play here. Just keeping it consistent. They know they have clean air. They know have got relatively little pressure compared to some of the other on-track battles. I say E2 trying to keep Thomas in arm's length, but slowly, ever so slightly falling away. So I think we're going to see them soon make that call to turn up the wick and maybe head around to chase them down. As they hopping on with Hardwick themselves and taking a look, you can see they're on 20% battery right now compared to E2's 70, which they have been slowly saving up over the course of the race. You can hear the overtake button trying to keep them at bay. E2 is definitely playing the long game, waiting for them to expend all their resource before, as soon as they see that recharge and seeing that they're out of battery, they know that that's their time to strike.
And you're getting down to the business end of the race too, lap 21 of 29. No virtual safety cars. No safety cars, touch wood. And that's the thing. So if E2 does, he knows, okay, if I burn a little bit and I get an overtake on Thomas, I then have to reapply my overtake to defend off that DRS that he's going to get, Thomas is going to get back later. So it's a double effect that you need with this battery with your ERS, because you need to manage it twice. Get the overtake done and the defend. I think the defending is a lot harder the part, isn't it, at the end of the day, than the attacking once you get the job done.
100%, because you've got to think that the attacker has the added benefit of DRS, so you aren't on an even playing field as much as you'd love to think so. So the good and the great strategists are separated by who uses their battery and their resources just as a sword versus who saves enough to also keep it as a shield should they need it.
I love it. Sounds like a Zelda experience right now, isn't it? AJ bringing it on Joshua, but AJ's battery is deployed. And that could be the case, isn't it? If AJ does get past Joshua, Joshua's also really trying to harvest the energy, then once again, Joshua's going to have that DRS back. They got Will that's broken up that Alfa Romeo party, just comfortably into that P9 position.
You can see both of them. They're right on the edge of their resources right about now. So Bashford and Jackson both in that dangerous 10% range. So Bashford being just slightly lower than the chasing Williams. So the question is, who is going to be the first to yield? It's the overtake on full deploy. We're down to the last few percentage, but AJ has the DRS. They're going to be chasing through and ultimately breezing by with a little bit of percentage to spare. But the question is, how are they going to cope with the re-attack? But that being said, I think Bashford burned too much battery to make a good move here.
I think they both burned it exactly. And AJ, you are sponsored by Duracell, so you've got to make sure that if you're going to be proving to anybody, prove to your sponsors in the team that you can do battery management when you need to.
But it looks like a local yellow. Looks like a local yellow.
Yeah.
It's Yelty who went off in the second sector, managing to get it back, not needing any form of safety car. Luckily, keeping that clean so far, touch wood. But they are down into P7, and it's not a good look. And they have jumped right in between the battle between Locke and Markham right now.
It's the locked DRS train. Look at that behind him. Ryan, Liam, Will, all DRS train. AJ's going to be in there in a second. Joshua, and that'll be a full DRS train from P6 all the way, obviously the P7 all the way down to where Joshua is, perhaps in P11. So that's the DRS train you want, because this is now getting crunch time to the final few more laps remaining. And yep, this is where it comes absolutely energy management 101 right now.
Because we're going to hop on quickly with E2 here. So they are down to 3/10 behind Hardwick. This is where we're going to have to see, are they going to be making that move? Are they going to be making that call? They can't leave it too late, because of course they need to solidify their position heading into the final laps of the race.
Another fastest lap from AJ, but one thing AJ needs to be very concerned with right now is I'm seeing 2 warnings from his team. And that will be a 3-second damage, will mean to lose out to Joshua for sure. So AJ's going to be very careful. He's obviously pushing it to the limit. That's why he's got a 130.9 fastest lap. But if you push it too much, you add 3 seconds to it, and there's no point having all those fastest laps over and over again, is it? Because if you're outside the top 10, you don't get any points for the fastest lap.
And that is ultimately the gamble. So how hard are you willing to go before you take it too far and you ultimately get that 3-second penalty and put yourself completely out of contention? That is the juggling.
And he's in a war as well, too, isn't it? Because you're battling it out for cars. It's very easy to go off track. You always want to have a couple of those off tracks up your sleeve. For these very situations of when you are battling and somebody unfortunately like snaps a brake or, you know, a little bit of misjudgment and you got to move out of the way. Okay, you're going to get caught. You'll get an off track for it. But that's why you have a couple of them up your sleeve before you get a penalty. So don't use them all up.
Yeah, so you can't burn all your cards or you're going to get in trouble. But you see that. So Kassan getting very, very squirrely heading out through into the third sector. Otherwise would have been able to capitalize on Jackson, who is recharging their battery now. Of course, burning all their resources for their earlier battles. But where they would have had an overtake opportunity, Kassan got a bit too unstable, really pushing those hard tires to the absolute limit. They say they're on 72% on the rears, which is putting them dangerously close to puncture, to blowout territory.
That's little yokel yellow. That's turn 1, and that's a Ferrari. That's Frederick. So Frederick's gone really slow through there. We'll get, obviously he's back on track. He's okay. We're still continuing with that battle. Yeah, well, maybe Pirelli are giving him a testing run to see. Okay, well, Kassan, let's see how far you can push these hard tires for us, please.
Yeah, so it's an interesting approach to a testing session, especially considering it's through a live race, but I will reserve judgment. Of course, I say that's FIA and Pirelli's concern, not ours. But here in the commentary box, we've got plenty still to chew on. We've got E2 chasing down Hardwick right now. Again, in that 4/10 range, in that striking distance. Not sure how much resources they've got, but there we go, 75% on their battery. They've got it all to burn, everything to gain. This is do or die time for the Haas. The question is when they're going to execute. They have enough resource to play with. You can see that they're going on the DRS. Again, not overtaking and pushing the absolute maximum. I think they are waiting potentially for the second DRS zone before they're making that move.
Playing psychological warfare, exactly. He's also studying Thomas up the road, so he can see where Thomas obviously is harvesting energy on that rear light on the back of Thomas's car. So he's going to be sitting there going, all right, he doesn't know what's Thomas' energy. When can I deploy? If Thomas is even listening to the stream right now, well, he's going to get a delayed feedback. We can tell you that one right now. That E2's has charged up his bank, and is he going to get ready to cash out?
That is the ultimate question. Say with Frederick, of course, making most of their late incident, heading onto these soft compounds now. It looks like they're going to be trying to steal the fastest lap in the closing laps of the race.
Why not? Yep, absolutely.
Yeah,
he's going to steal it away from AJ, and yep. So I don't think AJ is going to be able to respond with that one after he's burned through those fresher tires that he had with the front wing changes. AJ's been in the wars, but thankfully AJ can get race finish. Remember, himself and Bjorn have got a little bit of gentleman's agreement. We got to finish the race. Bjorn's down in P12. Well, they don't, but we just made it up. They do now.
I happen to say we are willing it into existence as they manifest it enough, and it will happen. That's certainly a heated battle on the midfield, and we will be coming back to that and visiting that. But in the meantime, we've got, again, E2 keeping that Alpine really close to the chest, to say both of them pushing the absolute limits. Hardwick is on the overtake button, but E2, again, is playing it conservatively. And I think, like you said, a bit of psychological warfare. We are seeing the mind games and a little bit of DRS chicken potentially going on here.
You got to force him into a mistake, I'd say. We discussed this last week, didn't we? And Pete and Ryan, actually, there it is. That was not a local yellow because of them. That's a local yellow because Will is actually parked on turn 2. And he's lost that place, but don't worry about him too much at this point because this is turning into this four-way fight because AJ's here now. Behind his teammate. Now, they were battling it out earlier as well. Now they're stuck behind Pete. That's Pete in the Alpine. And Liam's in here. So this four-way battle is going to continue, hopefully, for another 3 or so laps to go. Jasper's got to try to do everything about Noah to try to steal that P2, but at the moment, looking good for a podium. E2, as we know, sizing up his enemy on track, which is Thomas. So multiple battles everywhere here. You'd definitely not be going anywhere because you're going to blink and miss this.
And again, the teammates are reunited. Of course, as ALT has got a penalty onto their name, I believe track limits. So they have got a penalty they will be adding. So my question is, again, if they have Team Wars order, through? Should they just let AJ through? Exactly.
Should definitely let AJ through for sure because he's got the penalty. There's no point. E2, I think E2 might have got this overtake done if you go up there. Yes, he has. He's been sizing up Thomas for some time.
And the move is done like that. And again,
and
because...
he's deploying like mad, of course, because he wants to break it as quickly as possible, break that DRS so that Thomas can't come back. And he has.
That's again
but for the back, yeah.
Of all
Ryan,
of that
Pete,
resource.
They're all here. Don't even blink if you look at that battle between P6, P7, P8, 9, and yeah, I don't know. It still hasn't happened. Ryan actually got past Peter and didn't let AJ through. Now AJ has to get past Peter. So how is this panning out?
Yeah, but AJ is running on fumes now because he's only on 6% battery. He's pushing the overtake wherever he can. He's not got a chance to recharge. Really just pushing the edge of what they can do in that car. So making full use of that Duracell sponsorship as we have Frederick with a 1:29 lighting up the timesheets in those soft compounds with the fastest lap of the race so far. Will Casson going into the pits. I think they were going for softs. I think they ultimately made the miscall or misread the strategy because they were down to 80% on those hards, and I think that's what caused that issue earlier. I initially thought it was a delamination, a puncture on the tire, but doesn't look like it. Looks like they were just struggling for grip and ultimately made that judgment call to head in rather than limp them to the
needs
end.
to worry about. No, they're going to get that P1, P2. Perhaps Jasper's going to be really make a run, but yeah, I don't know what happened here. This is AJ's just recently signed up to the Williams team. I'm not quite sure he's going to be happy signing up to the Williams team because it's contact of AJ and Pete. Now, it looks like AJ's going to lift off and allow and say, my bad, but what's going to happen is going to bring Liam into play. Liam doesn't have to lift off and say he's bad. Liam's going to go for it.
And ultimately, is that going to be read as a strategy call, or is it going to be read as good sportsmanship? Considering they were just heading into a DRS zone, I'm torn as what ultimately the stewards might view this as.
I saw, to me, it looked like AJ had lifted off there, realizing he had to contact and allowed Pete to maintain that position. But the problem is, of course, he's got Liam there. AJ has to defend Liam. AJ has got nothing left, as you mentioned. Jasper, I don't think could do anything about Noah. We know that E2 did take Thomas, and looks like he might continue to get that P4 position, but nothing to get a podium right now. But this is where all the action is, of course, you see.
It's that big midfield train, that big midfield fight. So, of course, the Alfa Romeo, so Malcolm is starting to fall away a little bit. So, despite AJ's issues with resources, they're ultimately going to get the move done, use the DRS and a little bit of ERS that they've managed to save and recharge over the course of the lap to get past Peter. The question is, again, back behind their teammate. Why not just let your teammate through? I think it is a battle of pride at this stage.
Yes,
no team orders.
I know.
And ultimately, Ryan can defend better. They are doing much better on the resource front.
Oh, yeah, it looks like Jasper and Noah might be going for it. This is Jasper's time to shine on the final lap. He's been sitting behind Noah for some time now. Has he made the right strategy? Has he done an E2 strategy? Saved the battery? Not quite sure. It is the final lap, so that's it. And everything you have. No refunds on your battery when you get to that checkered flag, which obviously the Ferrari driver will. But who wants that second step on the podium?
And it's right down to the wire, because Ten being the only representative for Mercedes this round and wanting to make that quite loud and clear, say, despite my teammate not being here, I will still put in a good performance for the team. I think that's the statement they're trying to make. And as they're on the defense here from Noah, because our qualifying wonder, they have the DRS. Both drivers are on the recharge, but looking at the resources, they're really coming down to the wire. It's not going to be any wiggle room, any room for error whatsoever between the two. But ultimately, we have to consider that throughout all of this, there's been one driver who has been smooth sailing, and that is Amir. So coming through final straight now. And in that Ferrari, what a performance it was. Amir Durakovic, you have won the Bahrain Grand Prix, and what a win it is. Really just no drama, honestly. no drama whatsoever. I think that's the most surprising thing, is that despite all of the chaos around them, they had a clean race, no issues, or relatively little issues, and just kept their head down lap after lap after lap, didn't get involved, broke that gap, broke that DRS, and ultimately came home to sail to victory. It's a good showing for the lead Ferrari.
And the main thing is that he started on the second row on the grid, of course, in P2. He got the job done on Noah. That was the job early, and then just commanded and controlled that race from there. Noah will get the podium position in the P3, so we'll get to chat to them, of course, after. Thomas says 68 thousandths of a second, so he did a late charge to E2, didn't it, towards the end? And AJ, of course, did finish ahead of his teammate, but what happened in the Williams garage there? Because there could have been potentially much more there. They weren't fighting with each other and working with each other more so.
Yeah, it really is a question of what, maybe there was a communication breakdown or not a communication to begin with. But yeah, wait, both drivers having a couple failings in some ways. As of course, you had to say AJ having their issues on track before, you had Ryan, who ultimately should have let their teammate go by. They should have let their teammate go, but they knew they had the penalty. AJ with their heroic performance, in spite of a penalty, coming through to earn the game's driver of the day. And of course, we'd love to hear your driver of the day in the chat. But communication wise, there is a lot left to be desired, because if these two drivers keep getting in each other's grills and not working with each other, I don't think this team partnership is going to go down all that well.
Especially with AJ just signing the contract to be transferred to Williams. That's definitely the interesting thing there. And we not want to be in there debriefing a bit later on, for sure. That might be some not many smiles, put it that way, in that room. But smiles for this man on the top step, because Ferraris are back in 2022 and back with a vengeance, doing it with the strategy. Simple, hard to medium to hard. I'm just looking at the information. Anyway, you'd like to read through the results for us here? Sorry, the race results.
Yep, and there we go. So we all celebrate on the podium here. And to say winners and losers, it's all about today. It's Amir with a really good, a clean standout race. Taking P1. Ten Hag and of course P2 in that Mercedes. A last minute charge, really paying off against Noah, our qualifying wizard, in the P3 position in the AlphaTauri. Heading through the rest of the field, we have all up and down. Hardwick putting in a good performance, despite ultimately losing out to E2 Lapalainen in the closing laps, who really put on a masterclass of strategy, serving all their resources. But heading down the grid, of course, you can see it on screen here. I want to talk about, Gustav Korsgaard, one of the drivers who, of course, retired relatively early on. It's not looking good, considering that they have just been contracted, who has just had a contract extension to the next season of the series to stay with Red Bull. It's ultimately not a good sign.
Yeah, got to have a bit of a chat to Christian Horner about that one. I think we need to have a bit of a chat right now to our victors of this race, of course, our podium place finishers.
So let's grab them now. Let's have take a quick look, see how they're feeling, what they're up to. But let's bring them in. Of course, we have a P1, a winner of the Bahrain Grand Prix. Amir, how are you doing, mate?
I'm tired. That was a tough race in the beginning, in the opening laps. But again, I'm very happy for the win. It was a very dominant win in the end. I think I'm happy with my pace. I'm back to my old ways, I guess.
It's a return to form, definitely. I think when we were saying in the commentary box is that a lot of chaos was happening on track, but you're one of the drivers who very much just kept their head down and kept racing. So is it easy for you to do that, or is it 100% focus as they just don't think about what's going on around?
It was 100% focused. I know my race engineer Lenny. He was telling me stuff, but I was zoned. I zoned him out. I was only focusing on me, and then I tried to go for fastest lap, and I almost spun and lost a second. And since that, I just didn't. I just lost all my confidence in the car, so I couldn't really push anymore.
And Emma, when was the overtake done? Because I know you started in P2, just to verify with everybody, because we had just a little bit of camera problems at the very start of the race. When did you get the overtake done?
I don't remember what lap. I think maybe lap 5, 6. I don't remember.
That was it. Once you got that overtake done, clean pit stops in and out, and that was it. Just a nice, cool, lonely race at the front.
Yeah, I was saving a bit of tires in the beginning, knowing that Noah would push as much as he could. So I tried to save a bit and stay in the DRS, and then I tried to fight for the position, but I couldn't really get it until his tires just fell off, and then I could push as hard as I could till the pit stops.
Well, it's back-to-back wins. So you've got the win in Australia. You've got now the win in Bahrain. You can go for 3. You have Jasper that's actually finished behind you. Jasper finished in P2. We'll talk to Jasper in a minute. But yeah, 3 for 3 now. What do you feel? How are you feeling going into the next race, which will be in Saudi Arabia?
I don't have a good track record at Saudi. The only race I've done there, I got P2. I lost by like 0.0014 seconds or something. I'm generally not that good at the track. I don't have a lot of confidence. I don't know. It depends on how much practice I put in. Maybe I think my qualifying pace is fine, but my race pace isn't that good, I think. So I don't expect the win for Saudi.
But you want to win 3 in a row. Wouldn't that be a good feeling? Anyway, to start the season off. But
I mean, it would be nice.
Right, yeah, and I think just sort of specifically, I remember that specific series in question. It was all down to a DRS drag race in the end, so I'm sure you're looking forward to the strategy calls and a little bit of DRS chicken. But it's good that you mentioned confidence earlier, because I did want to ask, because of course you did get a little bit spooked by pushing hard for that fastest lap. But otherwise, how was your confidence in the car and your setup?
I changed setup like around last minute. I mean, I wouldn't say last minute, but I had done practice like the past 2 days on a setup, and then I changed it today with 4 hours remaining. So I had to adjust my driving style a bit. It was a lot more understeery, but I was a rocket on the straights. So I didn't have the confidence in the corners. But after a few laps, the confidence came back.
did you have any confidence in the Biggles doing a rain dance, trying to bring the rain? Because they got about 10% chance to rain toward the end. But yeah, is that way? Like, had you ever practiced before the rain in this track? I'd have to say that's probably a big no, right?
No, never. But
Yeah,
I was
exactly.
hoping. I was actually hoping for the rain, just for you.
Thank you. Maybe I'll hook it up next season when we go back to this track. We'll see.
Maybe Saudi next week.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's very much possible. Thank you very much. Any questions out there? Obviously, for Emma, you guys can post that in the chat there, but we'll let you definitely have a little bit of a lay down. Another trophy on the on your shelf for SwiftX. I'm keep telling you, mate, you're gonna have to go down to IKEA and get a couple of more shelves because they're gonna be full of trophies.
Yeah. Thank you.
And there we go. That was our race winner, of course. Now, I think, yeah, it's a little bit telling and kind of lends to what I said earlier, before we talked to Jasper Ten Haken. Differences in setups. So we saw a lot of drivers who've been a lot more corner focused and say a little bit more front heavy, and others who went for low downforce. And I think it ultimately told with some of the tire wear as well. But I didn't expect to say the variance in setups, and especially, as we heard from Amir, the changes in setup last minute.
You're right. I'm just trying to check out some of the telemetry information too at the top speed during the race, and I think about when those boots. Just having a look. I'd have to say about 317 kilometers per hour was peaked from Emar on about lap 22. So yeah, clean air at that point. Maybe got a DRS tow from one of the back markers at that point.
Yeah, when you contribute everything, say DRS, maybe fresh compounds, full overtake. I wouldn't be surprised to say if we saw, and just like it didn't get picked up by the data loggers, that we would have pushed into, say, the 320 kilometers an hour, say the 205 miles an hour range. But with that all being said, let's not keep him waiting any longer. Say, Jasper Ten Haken, how are we doing at P2? How are you feeling, my friend?
Yeah, I'm actually quite happy. I'm actually quite happy to get P2 behind Amir. It's pretty much the best result possible, I think, for today. Yeah.
And of course, being the only Mercedes representative on track, I believe, today, how does it feel to bank some solid points for your team at these early stages?
Of course, it's difficult to be on your own on track for the first 2 races now. Well, I had a teammate last round, but this round I was alone. And I just try to get the maximum amount of points in I can, to be honest. Yeah, I try. That's the best I can do at this point, and hopefully when I get a teammate again, we can double the points and really take the fight to the leaders.
You're beating, you are the lead Mercedes driver, so I mean, you're quicker than Lewis Hamilton. So you really can't complain about that one, can you? And that's maybe the reason why I'm trying to sort a teammate out, mate, because, you know, the budget cap, of course. There is no Lewis, of course. There's you, Aspar. And you waited until the right moment to get Noah towards the end. So how did that pan out for you? Mistaken, you guys were battling, and you were P3. That's right. You did get Noah towards the end.
Yeah, of course, I was behind Noah for quite a while, and I knew that he was very quick. You know, I could see all race. He was very, very quick. But I just tried to stay behind and recharge my battery, so I had a full ERS to attack him when the moment was there. And I knew that I had quite a slippery car on the straight, quite fast. And then I saved up some battery, and then on the last lap, I waited especially for the last lap, so he didn't have an opportunity to come at me again later. So I think it was the perfect time. I had a lot of battery and I could just use my overtake button, and it was quite an easy overtake, I think, in the end.
Taking candy from a baby, perhaps. All right. And your top speeds, I'm just checking these final laps, like 25, 26, 27. That's 326 kilometers an hour. You obviously had your car tweaked for some good high speed.
Yeah, I knew that in the race I need a little bit of top speed to defend and overtake, and I always try to set my car up that it's quick on the straight. And yeah, today it worked in my favor. So yeah, it's nice to have the advantage of a few kph extra. So that's what I try to set that car up, and I did as well. Yeah.
And then by doing that, of course, because there are a lot of long straights here with the 3 DRS zones, does it get a little bit of a scare when you have to go through those S's of like 4, 5, 6, and 7? And you go into the tricky, like more technical, slower parts of the track? Is that you'll sacrifice a little bit, obviously, traction through there? You still feel the car's pretty comfortable?
Well, I wouldn't say. Yeah, I would say it's still quite comfortable, but I can see during the race I'm having difficulties turning the car in the low speed and the high speed compared to the guys I had. I struggle a little bit more, but you know that's the sacrifice I take for having a bit of better top speed. So it's fine, you know. But yeah, it's a bit harder than the rest, that's for sure. Yeah,
I agree. I think
navigate the car.
that seems obviously to be a good balance because it's very hard to overtake through there anyway. Most of the overtakes are done down obviously the main straight with the DRS. So yeah. Anyway, good job, Jasper. Yeah, the P2s again. So you know another P2 from Australia. And today you started in P4, so you gained a couple of positions. It's good. Another trophy on the cabinet. Rosewater, unfortunately, not going to get any champagne today. But yeah, there's only one place you need to go now as P1. So how are you feeling going into Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, of course, there's only one place up, that's P1. But if I see the gap during going up each lap, I think Emir is quite a big step ahead still. But I'll try in Saudi Arabia again to close the gap as much as I can. But for now, I think P1 feels like a win for today. So I'll try to get a bit closer maybe in Saudi Arabia. But yeah, I'm scared the gap will maybe still be a bit too big. But yeah, I'll try, that's for sure.
He said in the interview earlier with us he wasn't very confident in that track. So how confident are you in Jeddah?
I think it's a decent track for me. So yeah, let's hope we can take the fight to him. Yeah, would be nice.
Oh, that only way to do it, isn't it? So find the weaknesses of your fellow competitors on the tracks that they don't like and capitalize on as much as possible. So there you go. Thank you. Any questions for Jasper, Ben? Because it obviously felt like a winner today and certainly was.
Yeah,
second step on the podium.
Certainly a win, say in our eyes, and certainly a win for the team, considering that you've been practically carrying the suit solo up until this point, to say for majority of the points anyway. My question is this, of course, it was a little bit of a strategic battle, not just an on-track pace one. We saw a lot of drivers, say, burning a lot of their resources, burning a lot of their battery, and then not having it to combat, to say, either defensively or offensively in the later stages of the race. Sounds like you avoided that, but how did you end up making that judgment call?
I think the big difference between the other guys, maybe in the midfield more, they have to defend and attack more because they are in a DRS train, and I was quite clear from 4, I think that was at the time. So I had like a 10-second gap, so I didn't really have to focus on defending. So I could just focus on Noah ahead, and I think that's the main difference. Didn't have to look behind really, so I think that helps a lot.
Had a bit of room to breathe. Well, they did brilliantly with using that strategy to full effect, banking another P2, some well-earned points. Congratulations today, mate.
Yes, thank you guys. See you next week.
And there
So,
we
yeah,
go.
so Toto's going to have to buy that man a couple of beers for that performance. But we need to obviously talk to Noah now.
Yeah, of course, I say there is one person left that we do need to talk to. So it's our, resident qualifying blitzer, and of course that is Noah Elakopi. Okay, so P3 today. Congratulations on your performance, mate. So how do you feel about it?
Thank you. I felt like my performance was great. I am usually a bit of a qualifying merchant, so my race pace was good considering that. I was keeping up with the Mia and I didn't really make any big mistakes, so I'm happy at my performance today.
Well, you certainly made that statement in qualifying. You absolutely lit up the timesheets in Q2 and Q3. I say demonstrative of some of the pace that you have on tap. You say that you feel like you were a bit of a qualifying merchant, but to say, how was your confidence heading into the race? Of course, starting P1 and having that early potential advantage, how was your confidence going in?
Yes, especially at the start of the race, I just can't match Mia in pure pace, so I was pretty sure he was gonna get past me. But after that, I tried to hold on to the P2 because I felt like I had pace for that, especially at the later stages. So, didn't quite happen, but I mean, I was confident that I could get P2.
Your top speed as well, too. I'm looking at the moment. Towards obviously those laps towards the end, you didn't have the DRS, but only really peaking around the 310s. So a little bit down the top speed. What was the reason with that?
I just went with way higher wings. I love a car that's responsive on the front end, so I had really high front wing compared to other people. So that kind of hurt me on the straights, but I just gained it all back in the second sector.
It got you the job done and get the pole position, obviously. Then
Yes,
towards the end,
yes.
and were you a little gutted, obviously, to lose out to Jasper just in the dying stages of the race?
Yeah, I mean, I felt like I could have held on to P2 with some better ERS management and all of that, but I'm still really happy with my P3. Like, I was nowhere near this pace in Australia, and suddenly to get pole and P3 here is just wonderful.
And it's points now, yeah, because you're just outside the points in Australia, P12. So bouncing back from a P12 to a podium position, I'll take that any day of the week. Fantastic work, mate.
Thank you.
Yeah, and ultimately it is a performance to be proud of. I say you made a proper statement of some of the pace you're capable of in qualifying, and you, for the most part, translated that into solid points for the race. So take a well-earned rest, mate. Take some rose water in this case, or at least until you get back to take a break, as say, in Mother Territory. But say
we'll have another final question there, because it was, you mentioned that there was a poll out there saying, is Noah showing off? 71% said you were qualifying. Noah, your response to that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I was kind of showing off. I had the tires left, so I just wanted to go out.
There you go. So 71% of you were correct. I was as well. Sorry, Ben, to cut you off. I had to ask that question.
No trouble. I mean, sometimes to say those questions got to be asked. To say that, and also you had the opportunity. You said, "Hey, why not? What have I got to lose?" And clearly, you had a lot to gain. Say, clearing 10th in Q3, usually the place where we see the smallest time splits. And for you to come in and break by over a 10th is pretty astounding, at least for us in the commentary box.
Yeah, but I wasn't really happy with my lap, especially my tires went fresh after my spin, and I just had a poor exit on the main straight, and I feel like I could have gotten a 0.6 if I had a good lap, because in practice I was doing 0.4s. So.
Just real quick, how's your time trials then compared to the rest of the world?
My time trial, I haven't done any time trial. I have 27.7, I think.
You probably are in the top 10 anyway in the world,
Yeah.
definitely at that pace.
Nah, I'm not.
Oh well.
Well,
you don't know because you haven't done it. It doesn't matter. Yeah. Hey, you don't get any points for time trial. You get points for racing, and you get points for finishing podiums. Congratulations,
Exact-
Noah.
Thank you.
P3.
As they take a well-earned rest, but there we go. That is our podium sitters. Now, say before, of course, we head off and talk about our next races to come. I think we got to talk a little bit about some of the team compositions, because there's a fair bit of news of that. Of course, we saw AJ's debut performance with the Williams team, having a little bit of communication problems, but otherwise putting out a strong performance, a strong statement that even though they may have some hiccups on their day, I definitely feel like there's a lot of pace under that hood.
Oh, AJ was in the wars everywhere, wasn't he? He had damaged front wing. He was always surrounded by cars, dropped a couple of places, clawed his way back in. The banker of fastest lap after fastest lap after fastest lap. Clawed his way back in there, of course, and had that inter-team battle. He had the inter-team battle a lot earlier than that as well. Then crawled back in there, had a battle with the Alpine, had a battle with the Alfa Romeo, there of Liam and his teammate Ryan. Joshua was in the mix there, and the other Alfa Romeo. Yeah, it was all over the place. Another thing also to mention, of course, is that it was good that Bjorn had also finished just outside the top 10 bar in P11, but Bjorn finished and AJ finished, of course, the key, because they did not finish the DNF. Only 2 DNFs. Again, that's a pattern are we having at SwiftFX now, like 2 DNFs per race seems to be what the average is so far.
Yeah, I think it's just, in a lot of cases, even then, some of those DNFs can be avoided, because it is drivers just simply making a judgment call and opting to save the car rather than pushing. I think you say it was Jacob Scholten and Gustav Korsgaard who retired in the end. Say both of them are certainly in the case of Korsgaard, having a lot of on-track issues and eventually calling it quits. But Sheldon looks like they retired relatively early. Didn't look like they had been involved in all that much drama. So I think as time goes on, as more stakes come with every race, I think those retirements for those kind of reasons, at least, will be dropping down. But to be fair, we also dodged potentially 2-3 more retirements with, of course, that 3-way collision.
Yeah, that was very, very surprising, but it was a slow collision, so just a little bit of front end plate damage. We're not sure about, obviously, side pod damage or rear wing damage, but they still continued, still got it done. And we did not have any virtual safety cars. We did not have any safety cars, and that's going to show you how great everybody was. The qualifying performance you saw, thousands of seconds was separated before Noah went in there and put that massive banker in, but everybody else was blisteringly quick, blisteringly close. So we're going to see that in Jeddah to come next week.
Yeah, so I'm certainly excited for it. And so the other thing, say we may see AJ. I think in terms of drivers to watch, of course, some people in the chat may be voting for their personal drivers of the day. But I believe, just looking forward here, if AJ can hook it up on their day, because considering all of the incidents and all of the issues they got themselves roped up in, to still come P6 by the end is a pretty astounding achievement. So I think if they can hook it up, keep it clean, we may be potentially looking at another podium fighter.
He had to bounce back because he also had the grid place penalty on that qualifying, remember, as well. So everything was thrown at AJ today, and AJ responded back the best of his ability. When she mentioned there's more to come from AJ, the Canadian. So obviously we do head to Canada. I'm just trying to see actually if Canada is on the grid. It's not actually, believe it or not, on the calendar. So unfortunately the Canadian driver will not be racing at home, but obviously Saudi Arabia and then Baku in round 4. That's the ones that we have to be focusing on for now. And now, of course, our sponsors are Digital Motorsports. You got to making sure you are visiting them. Grid Finder, everybody's here. And give us a bit of a thumbs up if you did enjoy this race, for sure, and enjoyed, hopefully, Ben and myself's casting. Ben, once again, brilliant job there for hooking up all the graphics as well. Casting and production at the same time. Not easy jobs to handle, and you do it brilliantly.
Yeah, so like the main thing is it's not so much a juggle of what graphics are on screen, it's a juggle of making sure that my control deck stays awake by the time I need to click the button to turn it off again. But with that all being said, to say it's, of course, I'm certainly looking forward to round 3. It's going to be the first round to be in a sprint format this season. Of course, we are heading to Jeddah. Say some differing opinions across the paddock, as we heard, and of course as across we hear. All social medias and our social medias, which you should give a check out, by the way. and say Twitter, Instagram, all of that. But certainly heading round 3. Have you got any standout predictions, Dean?
Not just yet. Too early for sure. It's like you trying to put standout predictions at the start of the season for Formula One, like this year. Like, who could have predicted what you predict? And we don't know just yet. So that's why you got to tune in. Many more races to go. 2 out of 17 done.
And there we go. So round 3, same time next week. So of course the first to be held in a sprint format. So we will be looking forward to some of the racing that is on track. And of course, if you want to keep updated with everything SwiftX, Swift in general, you know where to find us. So drop us a thumbs up, drop us a subscribe. So if you want to stay tuned for the next race or any of our other tiers races. But any sort of passing words from you, Dean, before we head out and get our bags packed to head across the Gulf?
We don't go too far. I'm driving, actually. It's a great little drive experience. But thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in. And, of course, the drivers, if you're listening, to watch it all back later, of course, because they can't be watching the stream. Once again, a brilliant job. Thank you, Ben, and thank you very much, SwiftX, for allowing us in the casting box.
And, of course, thank you for being here, mate, as I couldn't do it without you. But with all that being said, we will see you next week in Jeddah. Don't go anywhere. Don't miss a thing.